Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
Good
I'm
evening.
I'm streaming.
Mhm.
Oh, you're live?
Yeah, I just put it on live.
Cool.
Just
I'll go live in a moment. Did we all buy our SpaceX shares?
I did buy some SpaceX for sure. Yeah, I mean
Those shares are going to the moon.
it's the fascism play, bro. I mean it sucks that is what it is. You know, I don't know. It sucks, but I feel like it is. Yeah, it is what it is, man.
Well, you're definitely not the only one that bought shares. So
Yeah.
you're in good company, I imagine.
It's tough, man. I mean, it's so brazenly corrupt. I mean, I made money off of the Dell deal too when Trump announced like you should buy Dell stock right now. And I did, and I made money off of it. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's like an interesting ethical consumption question in a capitalist economy. Like, what is the way you can ethically exist in this economy? But I feel like, you know,
I mean, I don't know if it's insider trading if the president is telling you to buy stock.
exactly, bro.
That message is available to everyone, I imagine.
It's that, and I mean, if it's going to be corrupt, I don't know. I mean, everyone else is going to do it. The S&P 500 is going to do it. They're all going to trip over themselves to do it. So it feels, I don't know. It feels dirty, but also it's like, I don't know, man. I feel like you got to do it. You have that information. How can you not, you know?
Yeah, I mean, do you have like I don't know, a plan as in like I assume you bought SpaceX because you project it, to make money off of it.
Yeah. So,
But
I
then
mean,
it's like,
basically SpaceX is a Elon trading card. Yeah, that's basically what it is. You know, it doesn't make any sense. The evaluation that it is, the amount of money that it's making, the amount of money that it's supposed to make, none of that makes any sense. So yeah, I mean, that's just what it is, man. It doesn't make any sense.
but like, are you like, if it starts to tank, I'm not saying it will, I have no idea, but like, are you more or less committed to the end, whatever the outcome is?
Oh, I don't think that. I mean, I think that there's a really good chance that it's basically like an Elon calling card, and you're never going to see it. It really be. It's going to go down with the market, but I don't think that it's going to ever. That's why it's the fascism play, bro. It's never going to die. Because if he goes bankrupt, we're going to bail him out. That's there's no other way to put it. Like we would bail Elon Musk out. So,
would you? I mean, we don't know what the next administration is, right?
100% they would bail him out. He's the number one recipient of Department of Defense funds. So like he would absolutely be bailed out. Yeah. So it's I mean, it's disgusting. I don't think that it's fair. I don't think that it's good. I would dismantle his company, and I don't think that it's a good thing. I think he's taking advantage of it. He's not paying any taxes, and yeah. They're saying your stuff isn't coming. Can you guys do a test real quick, Corey?
Yeah, testing.
Test.
Yeah, you're not coming through for some reason. Let's see. Thank you, Gio. Thank you. Whoa, they updated. Oh my gosh, they just updated the mixer. That's why. Okay, we add you here. Chrome. Dude, you should be here. I don't know why I'm not seeing you. Speaker application. Oh, it's not even seeing Chrome. That's really weird. How can I? Sorry, 1 second. I don't know what's happening. Dude, the freaking TikTok app, like when they do updates, like everything gets all messed up.
Sounds about right.
It's not seeing your. It's not seeing the Chrome app. Maybe I can just go into Firefox real quick. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, this is sorry. Frustrating. Okay, 1 second. Thank you for the feedback. Test, test. What the hell is going on? Link stream, camera. Allowed, use camera, allowed. Standard definition. It can't see the camera. Like how? What the hell is going on? Oh, and this is my link. What? This is my Insta. What in the world, dude? Okay, 1 second. I gotta close my TikTok stream and redo it. I'm sorry, 1 second. What the hell? God, this is so annoying. Testing. Like, what? It's linking. It's not linking off of the device that it's using isn't using my microphone. It's using the Insta360. This phone. This. What? What is going on, dude? It's like we just updated the dude. Oh my God, dude. Come on, man. Where is the settings? Where did it go? Dude, the whole app is freaking frozen now. Are you serious? I can't even. Okay, settings. Come on, man. Settings. Oh my gosh, dude. What is happening? Default device. Yeah, Wave XLR. Why the hell is it coming up? Yeah, what the hell is that? There we go. Insane, dude. Okay. That should sound a little bit better, guys, hopefully. Okay. Let's try this. Let's just try YouTube here.
And the biggest egos you've ever seen.
Okay, cool. It does work. There we go.
I mean, I want to. I mean, I want it to be soon, but I know it's going to be a while, so I will let it be a while.
Yeah, that's unfortunate with TV these days, where it's like,
I mean, they started working on it immediately. My understanding was, well, no, actually, no, maybe not. I forget. I thought they. I mean, it got renewed immediately. So.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for being. Yeah. Yeah, there we go, guys. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right. We're back.
All right, I'll go.
Welcome back.
Then.
All right, guys. Well, first up, we have. Man, this is a scathing article. Kennedy shows minimal engagement with vast health portfolio. Corey, you linked this in the New York Times, and it really shows just how I can't. It's remarkable to me just how unserious the Trump administration is, and everyone in it. How they have no, they're not engaged with this at all, of being in these positions. They don't want to actually do the work. They actually don't want to be educated. He's not just taking the presidential daily brief, and Trump just watches TV all the time. But that's just Trump, right? That's just his thing. And surely he could still manifest people around him that are competent, and that, at least because he's a businessman, and that's what they all say. But then you have something that's RFK. He has presumably been fighting his entire life in order to fight these corporations, in order to push this agenda, to hold these pharmaceutical companies accountable. That's what he says. And then now he's in this position to have, I mean, he's never going to be president of the United States, right? I mean, can we just let's all admit that, right?
I mean, I hope not, but
There's
I
no
don't
way.
put anything past the American public at this point.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's you wouldn't think a reality.
Which one are we talking about? RFK?
Kennedy shows minimal engagement with the vast health portfolio.
I don't think Kennedy even wants to be president. I don't think he's ever shown any interest. I mean, sorry, he has shown interest because he ran.
Yeah.
But I mean, that guy. I mean, it was clearly to raise his profile. Right? People do that to raise their profile. But anyway, well, I guess I would agree with your thesis that he's not going to be president. Yeah.
And I learned a lot during this article. It's really interesting. He's not engaged with this at all. He's not actually doing the work. That was obvious. But man, some of the stats were remarkable. 340 million Americans, but 40% of the population gets their health care through Medicare and Medicaid. I had no idea that it was that much. 40%. I thought that was like, I was really stunned by that.
So both of them combined, that sounds about right. I mean, there's the elderly,
Mm-hmm.
right, who are going to be in Medicare, pretty much universally, except for like maybe the ultra wealthy, and then there's a large amount of people who fall below the threshold, who will take advantage of Medicaid. The 40% seems, yeah, I mean, pretty right. There's a lot of old people, and there's unfortunately a lot of people who are struggling.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's yeah, I guess I never thought about it in that terms.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't ever think about it, I hear
Yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah.
But he's not held any serious meetings about the Ebola conflict. Like, he hasn't actually done, he's not engaged with this at all. He's made no public statements. He has just completely been disengaged about this, and when asked, he just basically said, I'm not we're talking about it. Like, what? Like, that's it.
Well, yeah. I mean, just like this entire administration is all, from my estimation, all memes. Nothing serious. I mean, it's all aesthetics. I mean, we see it like it's an administration largely ran through whatever posting on social media, and even just like posting on the White House webpage, right? It's all largely about messaging, not actually doing anything, right? I mean, I now have lost track of like, is there an Iran deal currently, or is that off the table? It seems to change by the hour, or like we're winning, or rather, the U.S. is winning the war in Iran, but then not. And then even now, whatever, you just see Secretary Hegseth just posting on Twitter, his exercises. I don't know what he actually does aside from that, but maybe he's actually doing something. But all that to say is like, yes, everything outlined in the article about RFK is sadly not surprising. Where it seems like he clocks in. I think it was like they say he clocks in at 10:30, and then clocks out at 4 p.m. And that like he has his specific meetings, but he's largely like inaccessible. And even then, he seems to have his own sort of like whatever assistant that everything has to be ran through that person. I can't remember the person's name.
Yeah.
But like I think they were largely in charge of his campaign when he was running for president.
Exactly.
And it seems like that person is sort of like maybe not a puppet master, but like it's like they're the gatekeeper.
And they can't get things done. They couldn't. There was specific reports and specific ideas that they wanted to push through, and because everything is, Susan Wiles. Thank you, Helen. Yeah, she's like, they're not doing things efficiently. Like they're trying to take hold of this, but they're not doing it efficiently, and it's because critics quote critics say one of the most urgent problems is Kennedy's failure to act swiftly to address the leadership vacuum. There is no Surgeon General.
Surgeon General, yeah.
Around half of the 27 institutes and centers at the NIH are run by acting directors. The acting chief of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease was recently fired. The leader of the FDA quit last month under overpressure over the tobacco policy. Kennedy fired the CDC director, and it's now run by an acting basis of Jade Bhattacharya, who's already the director of the NIH. And this happened with Trump 1 too a lot. It was just, they don't have a theory of the case that government should work, and they feel like the swamp are these public officials. So why are they, in their minds, maybe they're like creating more of the problem or more of the swamp by nominating people?
Oh, I don't know exactly what the philosophy is, or rather, I think actually you more or less highlighted it in terms of like, for them, no government is effective government, right?
Yeah.
And I think this potentially overlaps with actually like a topic that we spoke about on one of the Prime's panels of like, if I remember correctly, like a lot of ambassador positions are left unfulfilled, or rather like these positions are open, waiting to be filled, but then they're just not going filled. So you have multiple countries that they have vacant ambassador positions. And like, and with these health institutions, like they're pretty much being gutted from their expertise, as in this is like institutional expertise that's going to be gone forever and not be filled for, I imagine, years or decades to come.
Yep.
The stream today, grab the link is in the group TM. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think what is the least offensive way to say this. I don't know. I don't know. It might be for the best that he's checked out. Like this. Think about this. What value does like RFK Jr. add to this organization? I mean, like the whole thing is the whole reason we're doing this show is because he, he's a detriment, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact that he's just like not involved, I think it's good, for my political propaganda purposes, right? To push my point about how destructive and awful this government is, and like it's just a complete joke, and it's just not run by serious people. And so I'll talk about this.
I'll take it.
Like, yeah, right. Yeah. But in the end, it's like, oh, do I want him applying what he does to like the FDA and the CDC, like the things that he actually sort of cares about, to an extent that he, people like this can care about anything. But like, do I want him to apply it to the wider Department of Health and Human Services? Mm-hmm. No, actually, I don't. Like, I don't want you involved. You're a know-nothing, right? You're completely incompetent, and you would be no one if not for your name. So I don't want him to be involved. I mean, that doesn't necessarily save us, though, to be fair, because like, if the level below him are also like political appointees or handpicked any which way, yeah, and rather than the bureaucrats who've come up within the organization, then it doesn't really help all that much. But it depends. I don't know the structure well enough to say one way or the other. I'm curious, like, who is doing the work, the decision is done by a lot of the bureaucrats. This is why actually the Trump administration is doing a lot to clear them out, right? The Trump administration is making changes to federal workforce regulations to allow them to get rid of more of the individuals, right? This is part of Project 2025. Because like they realized in the first Trump administration that something that held them back was the federal bureaucracy, and that the Trump administration would say, oh, we're going to do something insane or expensive or unconstitutional or mix of both, right? Mm-hmm. And then they would nod their heads in meetings and immediately not do that thing. Because they're not also idiots. So like part of the one of the bigger projects of Project 2025 is to be able to clear out, right? To just like destroy. I mean, shrink the federal workforce in general, at which they've had some success in, but also just to clear out and putting in loyalists. This will be important because later on in the next administration, right, if they are successful in doing this, and I have no reason to believe they haven't been, those people can sabotage the Democratic administration that's coming in, right? So this is a big problem overall. I think it's a bigger problem rather than necessarily what RFK is up to, right? So yeah,
that's fair. Although
not that I'm saying this is a bad topic. I am not criticizing your topic or anything. I'm just
but I'm curious how you feel. I guess you maybe shared it, but I understand the point in terms of do you want RFK doing anything? As in, it might be better for him to not be doing anything. But then it's like, in some sense, you're rooting for him to fail, right? And just like, some, and like, and I think that's a valid position, but I wonder how, I guess you Americans feel of like rooting for a president and, your institutional leaders to fail, right? Because at least, I guess the patriotic thing to do is like,
what is success though? Like,
that's true. Yeah.
I mean, like,
I think success would be like Trump won, where it's like he at least has people that are staffing this as opposed to, or trying to, I don't know. I mean, it just seems a lot different versus Trump 2, where it is like truly incompetent on purpose, burning the house down, versus like QAnon conspiracy of why Trump can't beat Trump and all that. I'd much rather deal with the QAnon conspiracy world than just us completely abandoning the world and people, like tens of millions of people dying.
Yeah, I could see that case as well. But like, I take the point of like, what is success? As in like, do we want them to be successful in implementing their agenda, whatever that? Well, we know what their agenda is, and they're pretty explicit about it. And so it's like, yes, I understand in that context of like rooting for failure. But then I guess it's like, rooting for the success that you want, as in like, can let's say Democrats, steer it or minimize the damage. But obviously, we don't see that happening, right?
Yeah, I don't think that he believes the things that he says that he believes. I think that's the problem, is that they don't actually believe that vaccines harm more people than the virus, for example. Like, but they just say that stuff in order to rile the base and all that kind of stuff. And now they have all the ability in order to do all this insane stuff, all these studies that they've been looking to do, their terrain theory, anti-vaccine people have been like, oh, now we have the stuff. And there was actually, I was watching a video last night, Tom Cohen, he's a disgraced MD that basically was prescribing medications off label for people where he hadn't even read the medical file for, got his license removed in California. Now he's a health coach. And he was even saying,
a health coach, I'm pretty sure.
It's pretty nice gig. Now he sells $50 herb spice kits that like protect you from all ailments. It's amazing. So, but he was even saying they have this study, in order to show that viruses are fake, and but RFK refuses to do it. He won't listen to him, So like, I don't know if they actually believe these things. That's part of the problem too. It's like, I think that he's using these lawsuits in order to make money off of like suing the pharmaceutical companies, but I don't think that he actually believes like this stuff necessarily. He would be like we were talking about before. He would be acting a lot differently if he actually thought that vaccines were poison. Like, you would come in and you just ban them. You'd have to.
Actually harmful.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to.
I believe he has explicitly made the claim, although correct me if I'm wrong, of like, he's made the claim that vaccines have caused overall more harm or like have killed more people than, let's say, COVID.
Yeah.
If you I would agree that if you genuinely believe that, you should be acting way differently. Or if anything, like, you should be considered a failure based off what you are doing or not doing, because like, vaccines are still technically, even though they revised the schedule and all that stuff and put up some barriers, vaccines are largely still to some extent accessible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you believe all vaccines are poison, well, you are making poison accessible now, and that should be considered a failure. So I agree that maybe he's a little bit difficult to read, but I lean towards him not truly believing the claims that he's making. But that's where it's like almost more disappointing, as in why, well, not that I know for sure, absolutely, but like, why do other people believe that he's sincere? What are they seeing that they're able to view him as he's a sincere actor, of like, he genuinely cares about the health of America, right? As in like his pushing of beef tallow, or frying your food in beef tallow, That's for, that's for the genuine health of Americans. And that, revising the food pyramid, which, wasn't the worst thing in the world. But even then, that's not like there was not like a major overhaul.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, what I'm curious, like what the analysis or what the Maha movement is seeing, that they view him as like a sincere actor. And I asked the same question about Trump, but like, of what do people see about Trump that some people believe that he's like sent by God to like oversee America.
Yeah.
And
I mean, they're so similar in that fact. Like they both really not engaged. Like if they feel like that this is their duty, their work in order to get done, the guy's showing up at 10 a.m. and leaving by 4 every day. And apparently he's this health conscious dude and he works out. Dude, I mean, come on, guys. Yeah, if you're serious about working out, you're hitting the 6 a.m. You're hitting that's the second shift. 4 a.m. is the first shift. Second shift is 6 a.m. Like you're not hitting 9 o'clock. If I have to do it because I have kids, but you know what I mean? The 6 a.m. is where you actually get it done, because that's when you can get it in. And that's so it's really important. The guy is just
6 a.m. he's doing the TRT and the peptides. Then
yeah, exactly. It's just fake.
Well,
it's
he
just,
doesn't have kids, right?
I think he does. He has to, probably grown kids. I mean, yeah,
like grown kids.
Yeah. It's just fake. It's just so performative. That's it. It's just so performative, man. Coming in late. He works remote for most of these meetings. He's just coming in. This is the anti-remote work administration, right? They literally banned.
Wasn't there some sort of like a mandate or executive order, or I don't know, there was some sort of like request of like remote work is bad and people should be in office working.
My friend that works, they're contracted out through the Department of Energy, and they said that after like Trump 2 happened, they changed basically and said that like they had to up that amount, and they had mandatory in office time now because of Trump 2. So it's like it's just, I don't know, man. But yeah, here RFK is just like not in a lot of the meetings. RFK is just sitting in them remote.
That's just how unfortunately it works with management. Of like, management has these requests of the employees of like, oh, this is good for the good of the employees, but then I'm the exception because, well, I'm in charge, right? But yeah, not surprising that he's not fully engaged, in that he doesn't seem to be that hard of a worker, because, well, like, again, if he truly cared, I would imagine it would be reflected in the work hours that he puts in.
Exactly.
Or at least you would see something in his actions that shows that he cares. But I don't see that. But again, maybe I'm blind. I don't know.
And it's just all these acting directors that are coming in that have no idea what to do, or have never ran anything like this before, that have no experience in this type of thing, and they're being shoved into these positions and they don't know what to do. There's examples in here where it's just like they're being shoved into these things, and they're doing things that are completely outside of the norm, right? On how the United States government would normally respond to these things, right? The rule book has been burned to the ground, and now here they come, and they don't know what to do. It's just it's crazy.
Even the revolving door of appointees, or like of these positions. Of like director of the CDC and all that stuff. It's like that does not reflect poorly on no one seems to care. Well, aside from maybe us, and well, I guess us that are political and others that are politically aligned with us. But again, the Maha movement, and there appears to be no political or optical cost to this.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess it's like an interesting question, like how I do think that there is like a government efficiency argument that Democrats should make, and anyone that's trying to improve, material conditions, and how can we use our tax money more efficiently? What can we do in order to like cutting waste and fraud, like that. Those are all just like blanket statements that everyone can agree to, right? And I'm curious though, like as these institutions now like come in, I mean, is there just like Prime, do you think that there is more of a capability now for people to just completely redo these institutions? Like, are we trying to get back what we had? Do you think like what do we even know what a good HHS would look like?
Um. Uh. I mean, as a leftist, I always want to go further. I think that um, I mean, there are some level of some of these agencies that yes, I would like to get back. But like, I think that from the left perspective, which is different from the liberal perspective by like a lot, but from the left perspective, I think we need to make an argument for like taxes, not necessarily like increasing taxes on like the least of us, no, but like obviously progressive taxes, taxability, we already have that. Like,
Trillionaires, you got to add
like
one in.
indeed, indeed. Um, but like we need to make a forward proactive statement for like what these taxes are used for, like, and like what why do we do this government spending? So often like Democrats are ashamed of like these programs, and they don't make a proactive case. Of course people are going to be willing to get rid of them. They have no idea what they do.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting that the idea of government efficiency. Well, Elon, that idiot, Department of Government Efficiency, right? Like that thing, like it wasn't a new department that was created. It was a transformed previous department, which like the computer government, like digital services something.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting department in and of itself. And I don't think many people understand this story. That department came out of, if I'm remembering the story correctly, hopefully I'm not giving any misinformation. But like, if from what I remember, that department came out of the Obama care situation, specifically the website. I forget what that. The Affordable Care Act website. There was a name for it, but it's escaping me now.
Yeah, but I remember, and it's referred to in the article, that sort of a debacle of like, if I remember correctly, there was a huge challenge of getting the website up and running, and there were huge technical challenges.
It was
with that website.
It was a complete and utter mess. Literally, like there was a moment where they brought like President Obama to show him like the website. When they're going to launch the insurance products, right? From the Republican plan that Obama promoted. But anyway, when they were going to launch this website, like everyone around him, like they were holding their breaths because they knew it was poorly put together. They knew that this thing was like being held together by hopes and dreams. And it didn't collapse in front of him, but like as soon as the public got a hold of it, right, it was a complete mess. It was a huge embarrassment. And so they created this department. Like, okay, well, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again, right? There was like a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of inefficiencies in how the departments were working together, and a lot of like government inertia using old technologies and stuff like that. Like there's a whole list of failures. So they created this department to better tackle and improve the government's technology stack. Yep. And they were doing a great job. They were creating great things, including this free tax filing service that the government had that became operational under Biden, and had rave reviews. Like imagine not having to go to TurboTax, right, or to go to HR Block every year for your taxes, just like using the government website. That's free. It has a lot of information any which way, and just like move through the process. People are saying that was fantastic. That office created that. Now that office is gone. That thing was destroyed, right? And also the tax thing. Trump got rid of that at the behest of TurboTax and all of them, right?
Yeah,
The next time you have to pay TurboTax, remember, they are the ones who stopped you from having a free alternative because it destroyed their business model. They donated to Donald Trump for that. So in any case, like, the point is that like you bring up the idea of government efficiency. I'll stop here. You bring up the idea of government efficiency, but and people have been trained to think that means spend less money, make smaller, right? Rather than, hey, why don't we like use it smarter, right? Like there's a certain level of government that we need to have to allow the services that that everyone relies on. When those when those services go away or they degrade, people complain then, right? But before we get to that point, why not have like using this tax money in a way that delivers better on these results? And it takes like actions like this. There's a fantastic effort, right, to upgrade the government's technology stack overall, and to help coordinate these things between these disparate departments that like otherwise it would have taken decades to make a decision, but that's what I talk about when I talk about government efficiency. That's not what other people are talking about. Done.
No, exactly right, dude. I agree.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, and you brought up this point many times before, Prime, and I think it's a great point in terms of like when government is actually working well and efficient, people don't notice, right? And even now, when government is, even not working as efficiently as it could be, like they don't appreciate or understand the entire infrastructure that's currently in place. And it's only really when things go wrong, of like, that website for Obamacare. It's only at really true points of failure that gets highlighted. But then overlooking the vast infrastructure and everything else that is working with the government. But that's where it's like, I think, yeah, the example that you brought up of like a website where people can do their taxes, or if taxes were automatically done for people.
That's another thing. Other countries do that. Yep, and that's great.
Yeah. But that's where it's like, what's better? Is it better that the government creates like a website or some sort of infrastructure that people interface with, and they interface with it and they make it, let's say, more or less seamless, but the person has to actually do something, and they see that it works. And in my mind, that might send the message that, government is working and doing something, as opposed to like if it gets done automatically, like people aren't going to notice, right? Or they're going to take it for granted, right? It like, even though that might be the more efficient approach, but it doesn't, I would say it may not necessarily send the message that, government is working efficiently if it's done automatically, right? It doesn't catch the attention of the general public.
Exactly.
You understand my point?
Yeah. And bring,
like,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, as in like the website approach, not saying that it has to, you replicate other people doing like their full taxes, but at least something that people interface with, that they can see that it works and it works well, as opposed to just like whatever, some automatic thing.
I'm not sure how to solve this problem. I'll end quickly, Greg, so you can jump in. But like, I'm not exactly sure the best way to solve this problem. Like what we could do, we could like try, increasing civic education, and let people know, like, and you just try to tell them the information, but also I think it's important for them to see it. So like, I can imagine maybe schools doing like more trips, like involving like, people seeing their government in action, right? Like taking kids and stuff there. And then it could be an effort in college. But the problem is that like as soon as Republicans get into office, there's going to be an effort to dismantle all that, right? Like,
well, that's brainwashing, what you're pretty much proposing, according to them.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, but that would be the effort. Like they don't want you to know like how government works, like in what ways it's helpful, because like the point is to dismantle that. They want you to think that it does absolutely nothing for you, right? The moment you learn the truth, right, then you're going to really resent when Republicans are trying to take it away from you. I mean, they've had like we'll just say for decades, right? Within this current, not it's not even the current incarnation of the Republican Party, from the Reagan's Republican Party. Sorry, let me just shortcut this. From Reagan forward, right? Like if we just like focus on that period of time, like there's been this narrative that the government's out to get you, and it can't do anything right. Repeated by mostly people who have zero idea what their government does, right, at all. And then you'll have the infamous sign, take your government hands off my Medicare. That can happen. That can happen when you literally have no idea as to how any of this works. It's a tough problem to solve. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight in the article where they were talking about what you're talking about, Prime, a daunting portfolio. So under any circumstances, the HHS is difficult to run. It has 13 operating divisions covering a vast array of issues such as child welfare, pandemic preparedness. Past secretaries from both political parties say there are three main ingredients for success: understanding the work of the divisions, strong crisis communication, and muscular coordination with state, local, and international health leaders. Kathleen Sebelius, a former Kansas governor who resigned as Obama's health secretary after the flawed rollout of the healthcare.gov website, said she met with division chiefs regularly, likening them to her cabinet. Quote, "My goal was to really be informed by scientists to make sure that the NIH was at the table, that the FDA was at the table, that our global health people were at the table," said Ms. Sebelius said in an interview, adding, quote, "I was really schooled by the people who had been there before and who knew what the hell they were doing." Mr. Kennedy, by contrast, has delegated broad authority to Stephanie Speer, a long-term advisor who has been with him since his days as an environmental lawyer and functions as his protector and defender, according to people who know him. So I think especially in these jobs, there is like an institutional knowledge, aspect of it. It is there is a broader like civics portion of it, but there really is like time on the job, understanding who talks to what, how things actually happen, and you can kind of like see this when you have someone like at work or something who like understands what to do for new people. There's just like onboarding stuff that kind of falls through the cracks. There's how things work. There's little things that people do cohesively that people don't really know or talk about, and then when that person's gone, then it all falls through. So I think like there is a technocratic way of kind of like, okay, let's break it all down and like let's try to restructure this and try to understand this. But when I was working at the largest chemical supplier in the world, it was daunting to try to understand this. Like I didn't have the institutional knowledge, right? I had the scientific knowledge, but like how do I interact with all these like systems and stuff, and it was incredibly hard. I had to really lean on my coworkers to understand what was going on. But I like to have so many people with so many different departments and a vast variety of knowledge. I don't know how you would solve that other than I mean, honestly, like probably having like an AI assistant or something that can look at what all the tasks are and maybe looks and sees like what actually happens. Maybe that is kind of like a solution in the future for this. But as of now, these are like people that have jobs that have real purpose, and they're not being filled.
Yeah. And going back to, I guess, this aspect of, government running well versus not well, and what people notice, and like also going back to I think something I highlighted earlier in terms of rooting for failure, but it's like I think there's a case to be made, or I'm curious, let's say what your thoughts are on it are of like, so we're at this point for a variety of reasons, but basically there is a proportion of the population that does not trust or has lost faith in these institutions. And like, as we're highlighting now, these institutions are being gutted and loss of expertise in people, but these institutions still have people there, more or less trying to mitigate the damage, right? And I think we've spoken about it before, and there's articles written about this. Like, yes, despite all the changes at these institutions, there are people that are saying that I'm going to stick around because it's like, if not me, then who else? And if I'm not here, there's more damage going to be done. But I think there might be a case of like maybe more damage should be done so that people see that these institutions work, right? As in like maybe you should have twice the amount of measles cases, then people will pay attention, right? As in like should it be damage mitigation at this point, or like do you send the message that these institutions work by having measles, a much more extreme measles outbreak, right?
I mean, I guess it's tough, man. I mean, because we're talking about like not just like the measles prevention. We're talking about the way that things are being screened. That we're talking about so many things, and it's just like there's so much harm. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a good question. Like, should the HHS director even have this much sway over this much stuff? Like, I think that is like, if they're going to be truly more technocratic and kind of be more autonomous, I mean, I think that makes more sense than having this overriding dictatorial authoritarian control where this guy can come in and just take it all out. I mean, it also comes into this weird part where you hear it a lot on people talking about the revolving door of politics too, right? Like we were talking about the FDA and there's a drug regulator right here. She was fired last May for her post at the FDA's top drug regulator, and like the reality is, man, that like as you go up in expertise, there's just less and less people. So
someone who is high up in a pharmaceutical company has the expertise to make the transition to some position in the government.
It just is that the FDA. And we're talking about institutional knowledge. We're talking about like expertise. Like there's just less and less people as you go up the pyramid that have that knowledge. Like if you're talking about this, I talk about this all the time with the conspiracy people, because it's like the top coronavirus labs in the world are just the top coronavirus labs in the world. So they are linked together. A lot of them are linked together because they're sharing data. They're sharing, what they're talking about. So like, is that a conspiracy? Like, no, they're coordinating. They're doing that. And we see it a lot with like the revolving door of politics. And that's honestly like my hot take is probably that the revolving door of politics probably isn't as important as people think that it is. And it's probably better to have more like technocratic solutions at these agencies where they're open, they're transparent, and these people are doing good work that can be seen by others, and the due diligence reports and stuff can be seen. I think that is more important than like the same people kind of in those positions.
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree with your point, especially when it comes to this aspect of the revolving door. But like, I also do understand the other side in terms of like optically it looks bad, and they understandably maybe don't fully understand of like what's going on there. Of like this person who was at this position at a pharmaceutical company, they probably have some very niche expertise, and it happens to translate over into the FDA. Now, am I saying that is the case in every single situation where that happens? No. Definitely not. I'm sure it happens where someone through whatever connections, or it's not driven by expertise. But all that to say, I'm hoping, and I largely lean towards it is driven by expertise. But I'm curious, for example, Greg, like, going back to my earlier point of like, should it be just damage mitigation? Like, if you are working at one of these institutions and like these and in its current state, I'm asking you to speculate, but like, what do you think your approach would be? As in, would you stick around, or would you have the mentality of like, well, I need to stick around because for damage mitigation purposes of, I see that expertise is being lost. I'm going to be one of the few experts, good experts that stays to mitigate the damage. Or would you abandon ship? I can understand both sides.
It would be the same stance that I have right now, is that I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. So whatever I had access to, radical transparency, I would be talking to the media. I would be like disclosing whatever I could to whoever I could, you know, being as public as I could, talking about this stuff to the point where they would have to fire me in order to talk about it. Like, I think that's the only way to deal with this type of information. Being silent and being kind of like in the shadows and stuff like that, I don't think that works. I don't think that like going along with it.
Do both in terms of like maybe stick around for a bit, see all the, you know, collect all the data in terms of all the bad, and then, you know, just be a whistleblower, right, and quit and resign.
I mean,
or is in the title like one hand on the steering wheel type of thing, but also with the transparency aspect.
I think that duplicitness could be taken and it could be construed in different ways. You know, I think that like radical transparency is usually the way to go in the scenarios. Like that's how I would, as opposed to just like some huge data dump and stuff, because then you really don't have the ability and the expertise in order to shape that leak, to shape that information. Who are you in order to do that? I don't know. I don't. Like Snowden and stuff like that, I don't really agree with like how he handled that scenario necessarily.
Sure.
So I do think like, but I don't know. I think that the damage is already there, you know, like, and the scientists, we're talking more about like a lack of people in these positions, more than like, what are these people doing? But it is interesting, like what happens,
person, right?
Yeah. I do have my friend in this agency. I mean, there is standing orders that you are going to do work on projects that only the president of the United States agrees with. Like you're not allowed to work on projects or push anything that the president doesn't agree with. That is like a standing thing. And that's not even, they don't even work for the federal government. That's a contract. They're contracted out. So like theoretically it's an independent organization. They could do whatever they want, but which is unfathomable to me. I would be very hard pressed to do that. So I don't know, man. That's
yeah, no, it's like I can see either way. Like speculating for myself as of now, probably lean towards of like yeah, I lean, as each passing day goes by, I lean more towards of like maybe damage mitigation is not the best approach, and like people should, you know, well, see the true damage that's being done when these changes go unmitigated. Because basically the proverbial, you know, people need to touch the fire and get burned before they actually modify their behavior.
Because at some point you are signing off on it, like by saying that and agreeing to the reports that are being taken out, or like imagine working for or doing and touching the acetaminophen cases with autism, and now he makes those baseless statements about vaccine causing autism. I mean, it would be it's awful. Like that, it would be. I mean, what would you do? I mean, if you're already working on that, I don't know. Like, what do you say? I mean, he is being, you know, taken to court about it. So it like the judicial branch aspect of it is kind of being pushed. But as a scientist, what do you say? Like, what would you do? Like, go out there if you're working for the NIH or something, like with those grants, or you're working as an advisor or something like that. Like, I don't know. I mean, he's making his own baseless statements, but he's representing the entire department. You know,
yeah, no, that's where it's like, well, if you're in the position to undermine, or rather, it would be viewed as undermining. I would not view it as undermining of like if someone speaks out saying, "Hey, what RFK is saying in regards to the link between Tylenol and autism, that's totally BS, and like the current evidence or data do not substantiate that." Like I personally would have no problem undermining that, but I also would recognize that I'm probably not going to be lasting long.
Yeah, exactly.
If I do that.
Prime, any closing thoughts on the ideas of the HHS and RFK's leadership of it? We're gonna, before we go to the screw worm.
And well, do you have any thoughts on, the approach of what I was bringing up in terms of like mitigation versus non-mitigation?
Exactly.
I think you're basically making well, you're not really making the argument. I understand you're just like asking the question, but like that sounds like an accelerationist argument, which,
yes.
Like, I don't know, man. I've got like young family members, like little kids. It's easy to say, well, I mean, I wouldn't mind these numbers going up, with the assumption that, it's not going to affect the people of my life, right? I'd be heartbroken if I found out that Dr. Greg's children, came down with this.
Fair.
And and for all the others, right? Like even, the children of anti-vaxxers, because they didn't choose their idiot parents. So like numbers going up in that way, like it's easy to have a level of emotional separation from these things, and like not realize there are people behind it. Yes, it would make a better political point for me if like there were 10 kids dead from this, right? Like, or the numbers even went higher. It's something I could use in political arguments. Great. Also, there's 10 kids dead, So I'm not for that, especially not in this area. I mean, like in other places, maybe, I don't know, like there might be a better argument to be made when like the connection between life and death isn't so immediate. Health and Human Services has a big important job to do, and like the next topic that we're going to approach is another example of this. Of what happens when you don't have competent government. The next topic isn't necessarily about life and death, like human life and death, but billions of dollars.
Not yet, and hopefully it stays that way. But like,
well, I mean, I don't think the screwworms can affect like humans directly, but like it's just that, or I mean, they can't be like not like in a lethal manner as far as we know. But like like the consequences are just stark when you don't have these things. So like, like in terms of like remediation, you're talking about saving kids' life. That's always going to be a good thing, like just put it into that. But in terms of like hoping things fall apart, I mean, I don't. I mean, I guess I could have some examples of.
Well, I wouldn't say I want to frame it as hope. At least I personally want to frame it as hoping. But I take your point in terms of like
more like radical whistleblowing. Like, what do you think? Like Snowden, and as a scientist, if you're working for here, like, what is your duty in order to, like expose as much data as you can, knowing that there probably isn't going to be much political impact, but then. Like what do you think your like morally or ethically like your duty is as a patriot?
Well, I'll have to disagree with you in that. Like I thought Snowden, how he handled it was brilliant, and shout out to Edward Snowden. I mean people still like don't. I think people have forgotten just like how much he exposed about what the American government is doing and its massive surveillance state. Gave us information that we didn't know before, and who knows if we would have ever found out like within our lifetimes, or it would have been one of those things 30 years down the line. You find out the government had been spying, had an immense spying program against the domestic audience. Like that was amazing. Shout out to him for doing that, and at great risk for himself. So like in terms of like whistleblowing, yeah, I'm absolutely for that. And we should also understand that both Democrat and Republican governments absolutely hate it. Obama was the most vicious to whistleblowers. Um, he in the way he used the law against them and journalists, whistleblowers and journalists. No one had been more vicious to them. And I'm not sure if Trump has even surpassed his use of like this like Sedition Act and all that. So it's bipartisan. That power doesn't like to be checked. Obama's famously said, sunshine's the best, like disinfectant. That was a lie, though. That was absolutely a lie. He didn't mean it. And so like governments don't like it when their secrets are told and they're questioned. But shout outs to the people who do it. They're absolutely brave. They're heroes, and they should be treated as such.
All right, man. Awesome. Well, guys, I gotta tell you, the new TikTok dance just dropped. It's called the Screw Worm. It's wild. I think that's what everyone's talking about now. That's what everyone is. But it's wild to me. How often, and what stood out to me about like these cases and what we're talking about is how many things in the early 2000s that we had eradicated, like from the United States. At least we had it wasn't there anymore. We had no new
I'd honestly
cases.
had never heard of this until recently, until these articles started coming out.
Yeah, and it was interesting. The idea when I was interviewing for labs, trying to get back into academia, I actually interviewed with the lab that did the gene drive, the CRISPR gene drive in the mosquitoes. Corey, I don't know if you've heard about it, but yeah, it was a really cool like breakthrough using CRISPR to basically each of them would be getting half of a CRISPR. They would be released into the population as they bred. The resulting offspring would have the CRISPR activated. The offspring would die. It turns out they've just been sterilizing flies and releasing them into South America for a really long time. It's been remarkably successful, guys. And we are monitoring efforts in order to watch that happening, or the monitoring the advancements of screwworm from across Central America into the United States has been halted, and now here we are. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced 3 new cases of New World screwworm, including the first cases in dogs and goats on Monday, bringing the nation's total count to 5. It also pledged to ramp up and expedite mitigation efforts for screwworm, a parasitic fly that the nation declared eradicated in the 1960s. At a news briefing on Monday, federal and Texas state officials said that they were using technology driven by artificial intelligence to monitor screwworm populations, training ranchers to recognize infections in their livestock, and expanding the numbers of facilities that produce and disperse sterile flies, which are the primary tool for managing screwworm. Guys, when they just say and throw in, we're using AI to manage.
Don't worry, AI is on the case.
They're just talking to ChatGPT, guys. They are not using language like neural networks, deep learning. It is literally like the worst case of using it. Like they're definitely just putting data into ChatGPT and be like, what do you think? And or some intern is who's about to get doged, and now they are I love that. I love that they're just throwing it. Guys, don't worry. We got it under control. We've got AI on it. And you're just like, I just can't, you just can't make it up, man. You just can't make it up. So I mean, it's one of those things, it's just yet another example of like these, that parasites exist, that I just was reviewing a video last night. Like these people do not think that like parasites exist. The RFKs of the world, the terrain theory people of the world, they don't feel like parasites are actually real, that viruses exist, that these are just manifestations of microplastics or chemtrails or whatever it is. And now, but in reality, guys, they exist. We have to monitor them. It impacts us. And it's just how good science is at prediction, which is a predictive quality within science. And we have mitigation efforts because of that. And when we hinder that, we don't have those capabilities now, and we can't prevent that from happening. I mean, it really is that simple. And now look where we are. It takes so much more effort, and it's so much harder to, get the cat inside the bag. You know what I mean? You gotta prevent it from happening in the first place. And these are all lessons that were, rules that were written in blood. That, how is since the 1960s, guys. Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm curious because like they mentioned in the article, and you sort of like alluded to it, of like, well, so there's, I guess, multiple solutions, but now one of, I guess, the newer solutions, maybe not newer, but rather a newer approach to the same solution of like, one of the primary solutions is creating sterile flies, I think largely male flies, and then introducing them, or like pretty much flooding the zone, these male flies, so that effectively they can't effectively reproduce. But then now we have the tools to do that through genetic modification. And I imagine that's probably like quite efficient. But then it's like, I'm curious if I'm not actually all that curious, but I imagine like there's not going to be public backlash or resistance to using these genetically modified flies, right? Because like, it's genetically modified, like, are the ranchers or whatever, the farmers going to reject the use of these genetically modified flies because it's like, well, because they're genetically modified, even though this will probably be like one of the most effective, if not the most effective way to solve the problem? I imagine probably not, since like they recognize that this will be, well, they'll probably recognize the technology is good and that's effective.
Exactly. The same people are telling us that DNA isn't the basis of heredity. And here we are using, we're using knockouts in order to, the knockout protein, like the knockout DNA is literally being inherited and causing these problems. The Novo fly contains genes for two unusual proteins. In males, these proteins have known effects aside from sterility, but they cause females to die at the embryonic stage. So the only Novo fly to reach adulthood, unless tetracycline, a antidote to the genetic modification, is administered, is a sterile male. It's never been tested in the field, and that has to be the next step. Sweet, guys.
But like, yeah, will there be resistance to testing in the field? Because like, oh, we can't introduce these genetically modified organisms. Like, again, there's a significant proportion of the population that's against genetically modified foods. So it's like, I would have to imagine, or, I would assume consistency would be at play. Not that I expect consistency, or I expect not. It's like, these people will not be consistent.
It's interesting you say that, because the gene drive, the example that I was talking to you about, it did have hybridization there was some hybridization that did exist that that we saw, like, and so it's not it's not 100%. There's going to be somehow, like, sometimes you're going to have parts of these genetic components that just exist sometimes out in the wild, and like what those recombinations can be over time, like, we don't know. It can be although
this technology seems different from what I can tell.
Like, it's not a CRISPR based gene drive, but I'm just saying that, biological control agents where you are introducing, an organism in order to, it's not as clean. Novofly is considered a pesticide. It would typically be subject to lengthy approval process before being released into the environment. However, because of the public health and economic dangers associated with the screwworm outbreak, the EPA is considering an emergency use authorization, guys.
Well, why would we need any regulation, right? Isn't that the whole point of this administration? No regulation. That's let it rip. Right?
I love the idea of like the Trump admin going like, after all that stuff with the EUA and the COVID vaccine, now all of a sudden they're using it again for Maha and all these guys. Like, it's just
now that we have a real problem with the screwworm. better to accelerate the use
Yeah, I
of
mean,
this
like,
technology.
I mean, kind of like going back to what Prime was talking about. It's like, well, I'm happy that they're using the emergency use authorization. This is exactly what it's for. It's more of the hypocrisy, right? It's more of like the fact that these people are just openly hypocrites, and but they are, and that is their superpower. That is the Republican superpower, that they can be hypocrites, and it's actually it's a strength for them because they do it and it's right, and Democrats do it when it's wrong, and that's what it is, and that's what it always will be.
I mean, it's I can't concede it. It is an advantage to not be handcuffed by consistency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What morals? What is that? I mean, like, Prime, do you think that, like, how? I mean, here it's just another example, right? Of the, RFK comes in, all of a sudden he spends his entire adult life suing Monsanto against about glyphosate, and then as soon as he comes in, glyphosate ramps up production. There's the emergency use authorization for something that is less controlled than a vaccine, but here they are, like just using the powers of the, of the government. I mean, do you think that, like, in terms of hypocrisy, do you think that is it like, can we learn something from this to actually just that maybe, like, all these the Southern Belle, like, oh my God, I can't believe that the Democrats would do this, or you know what I mean? Like, maybe we shouldn't be tied to this Republican media circus, right? That we, as people that want to make a better world, that we can just kind of move forward and not have to be dragged down into the pits of this Republican algorithm world.
I'm not sure there's much to be learned from Republican, like, hypocrisy. I mean, like, it's self-evident, it's known, right? Like, if you don't accept it, it's because you're part of the MAGA cult. Like, I mean, like, there's a billion examples. I mean, we've given them, and we'll give more in the future, right? But just like, how much more is there to learn? I mean, it could be useful for propaganda, I guess, but only not even that much though. Like, it's like, yeah, I mean, this government just doesn't care and doesn't follow the same rules. So I don't know how in the end, like, useful that is, right? Like, um but, like, I think it's just um you know talking about, like, the screw worms. I just want to go back to what Corey said previously, which dovetails on what we had said in the previous section. Corey said that he had never heard of this beforehand. I hadn't either, right? And I imagine most of you hadn't. And that was because government worked. Like, government worked. It handled it. It was done, right? Like, there was a division of, I don't know how many people who had this job, and like, had funding to manage this, and it was handled. It was done well, right? Decades without a significant outbreak. That is an incredible government success. So successful that you never heard of it, right? And now,
True.
Now that it's been screwed up, now that ignoramuses have been put in charge, right? Know nothings. The world, well, at least the United States, has become aware, right? The general population is learning these things called screw worms. Huh? What is that, right? Yeah, like, for those of us who are paying attention, we are learning about, like, these great efforts that were undermined, right? And I'm not sure if this actually happened. I suspect it might have at some point in time, but I'm not sure. But, like, we've heard stories like this before, right? Where Fox News, conservative media, gets a hold of some sort of the research study or government grant, going towards some sort of like study of some obscure animal, right? Like, and what we're talking about here is like the mating habits of flies, right? Like,
Yeah,
look
exactly.
how much money, yeah, millions of dollars are going into like altering the mating habits of flies. Now, you can imagine that news section on Fox News being played continuously, right? Going through the Republican fever dream, and like, oh, well, this is yet another example of government waste, right? Government waste.
Mhm.
Obviously, there could be no reason to do that. One, like, let's pretend screwworms weren't some sort of pernicious uh, uh, organism, right? Like, let's just imagine they were an interesting fly or organism that was just like being studied, right? That could have incredible implications one way or other, like whether we know or not, right? We don't know what'll be interesting until we actually take a look at it, right? So yeah, actually like gaining knowledge can be useful because that can come in maybe decades later, right?
Mhm.
But in a critical moment when she's already done the research and it's already out there, just putting that out, just making that clear. But in this case, no, it actually has direct practical implications. But if this was like went through the conservative fever dream, right? The fever swamp of media, yeah, this would have been turned into their next boogeyman, right? Another example how government fails, and we just need a businessman to come in there and clean things up, obviously, right? Like, I mean, so like that's the thing that I'm more interested in examining, right? Because I think, once again, we have to like let people know like what does government do, right? Now, I don't think you could have ever made the screwworm interesting, to be clear, honestly, until this happened, right? And people can understand like the direct link between that and like beef prices. I don't think like it would really take a disaster like that we're facing now to make it
Probably.
salient to people. There are plenty of examples, plenty of the programs, right?
Yeah.
That are easier to draw links to. And people just like we just need to be constantly be surfacing this, right? Like if the if Republicans can like do news conferences, right, and go on programs, or the conservative news outlets to talk about like how this program is failing or it's waste, whatever, right? Like we could actually just do the opposite, right? We could just like go on these programs. We mean Democrats, corporate Democrats, but at least maybe
Your favorite.
yeah, but more lefty Democrats in which way. But like you could just go on and just make the opposite case, right? Like we could just like not even we could just talk about like, hey, like this is a set of programs that we've been looking at, right? And this is how they've been affecting you. And what I want to do is I want to increase this, right? You find success stories, things that are actually working, things that are making people's lives better, and that you can draw some sort of significant link towards, right? And we're like, this is incredible. In fact, we should be increasing this. Let's let educate the public as to what this is, what it does, how it works, and how it's related to you, and then say, hey, actually, why don't we increase this? That's what I'm fighting for, rather than constantly being on the defensive, right? As Republicans try to cut things, and then Democrats are trying to maintain what they have or lessen the amount of damage you're going to do through the budget, right? Actually, make a proactive case. No, we're going to increase this because why? This helps you.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And also maybe just to like expand a little bit, so multiple things. Well, one, going back to a point I've made before, it's like a lot of rhetoric gets thrown around in terms of like whatever third world countries, right? But then it's like, well, U.S. has a measles outbreak. You now have the screwworm, which I believe, according to the article, like that's the result of like pretty much like I think coming from Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I think the case is mounting more and more that the United States is a third world country. But also, another case you made as to why the U.S. should care about what goes on in other countries. Of like, if this was the result of coming from Mexico, or like whatever migratory patterns were coming from Mexico, it's like, well, what if the United States implemented a similar program or had I think the United States has a vested interest in eradicating the screwworm in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
right? And why not either help them with their own program? Because it's like, well, as has been said many times before, viruses no borders, and parasitic infections no borders. And so it's like, yes, you can maybe close off your borders to people, but things like parasites, like in this case, and viruses, like uh, a border or a wall is not all that effective.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom tweeted out like, "Can we have this one back?" Like, and it was exactly what Prime was talking about, where it was some Fox News article being like, they're trying to breed flies in South America for tens of millions of dollars, you know, and it's just like, well, yeah, it happened to be like these flies specifically for this reason. And Rand Paul and Ron Paul do the same thing every year. It's like their most hated, like freaking their most hated governmental scientific funded, you know, projects that they're joking about. But you know, it's just that type of ideology doesn't build anything. You know, like they're not saying like it's better to build it to build it in this direction. They're just trying to burn down the house. Like at least science and this spending, like whether or not these things get approved, you know, the money, the pool is given to the NSF, NIH, DOE, or whatever that agency is by Congress. And then those specific grants and those awards are given out by their peers democratically within their subgroups. You know, so these professors go and they basically present to each one another like how, where, and how these grants should be awarded, and they choose, you know, what is the best research and development grant. You know, this stuff like is I don't think that this is necessarily like research and development wise, but like the one that they're talking about for the new flies, that would be in that pool that we'd had to have developed that for years in order to actually have that. But Prime, I wanted to give you a shot at this. There's a chat that said, "You guys are intoxicated with the two sides of the aisle. The most prosperous future is not on either." So I'm curious, like, what your thought is on that, Prime.
Not entirely sure what that means.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess like we are talking about in general how Republicans are uniquely bad at doing this, like and the Republicans being so anti-science and anti institutional knowledge is absolutely pushing us in the bad direction. So I think that is very apparent. So like I don't think that you could say otherwise. But yeah, that's.
I mean, this has happened on this administration's. Like, it's hard for me to imagine. Although I guess nothing is possible. Like, can they blame the Biden administration for this? I don't think they can. I don't think there's any meaningful way that they. So, but like, will this administration receive any sort of penalty, or like, is this going to result in any sort of meaningful loss? Obviously not. And at the end of the day, like, is this a major problem now? No, but I think it has the potential to like potentially spiral out of control. But either way, at least optically, it's not a good look to have something that has been considered eradicated for whatever 50, 60 years, and then now has returned. And now you have to actively monitor it and spend probably more resources than you need to hopefully get it eradicated again, or like truly under control. But then it's like, well, yeah, if this is on this administration's watch, that should be a bad look for them.
Yeah.
And they should pay a political cost for that. Do I expect them to? No.
I mean, the people that I debate and the panels that I'm on, the Republicans say that this is just another like, it must be an election year. That's what their thing. More fear.
Isn't like, I'm not an expert on U.S. politics, but is it like virtually like every year an election year, or virtually every
It does
other
seem
year?
like that. I mean, it's like because they're like, oh, it's wow, it was bird flu. Now it's hantavirus. Now then it was Ebola. Now it's screwworm.
Yes, that's
You
how
guys...
nature works. Like, yes, there's all yes.
Exactly. I mean, it's just it's wild to me that people are still coming to the grasp with how the reality, like that we don't live in a hermetically sealed bubble. Like humans exist, and our health is tied with environmental health, guys. So when we don't monitor and we're not involved with coronavirus bat cave monitoring, it impacts our ability to have better vaccines and flu vaccines and things like that. Like
Yes.
we it's just
Humans
true.
can ignore nature, but at some point, nature will not ignore you. Like, you
That's a
can't.
good way to put it. Exactly. I mean,
Like yeah, as you said, like we have all of this technology. Not that we have perfected everything, and far from it. But like obviously, technology is better than ever, and advancing at pretty accelerated pace. And it's like, yeah, to impede that, or like to get in the way of implementing these technologies, or not using them to, let's say, monitor nature more and understand nature more, is just like it's not going to work out. Well, we see it not work out in the long run. Like,
yeah,
nature is brutal. Like,
I guess like Prime, I'm curious about your thoughts on like I'm curious is the future like a technocratic solution where we can figure out like apolitically, not ideologically, how to like make these systems better, or for monitoring and science and funding and that kind of thing? Do we remove, like, kind of like separate out science spending and the CDC and the EPA and stuff, like not even tie it to congressional spending, like voting at all? So then the president and the Democrats and the Republicans can't even touch it? Or is it to like bring in a third party or way or group to that could usher in and change the Democratic Party, because it seems like the Republican Party is lost at this point. So I guess like people that want to try to improve the world, do you think that we could kind of like the Fed, like should we take out the science spending from the government entirely? But I'm just curious, like what your thoughts are, Democrat versus Republican, and on this kind of stuff.
I mean, Corey, you already knows my answer. Absolutely everything's political. So it's foolish.
which I agree with.
It's foolish to ever think otherwise. Everything is political. Either it's cello politics or currently divisive politics. That's the only difference. But it's all political. Science spending is not a thing that has enough political support to be somehow sanctioned off in the government budget. I wish it did, and I guess automatic renewals for grant spending and whatnot. That would be great, but like it doesn't have the political support to like for something like that. But I mean, I guess I wouldn't be opposed to it if that was the case. Even then, that would be political, and even then, it would need defenders. Um, uh, like Social Security is sort of cordoned off in that way. But Social Security is constantly under attack, and it needs defenders. So no, there is no path forward where, at least currently, there isn't a fight. Like the path forward, I think, is maybe like winning the conversation about science, like getting the public back on track with like science education and like an understanding of how important these things are. And so like, well, destroying this narrative, this anti-science narrative. I don't know how likely that is to happen anytime in the near term, and I feel like the way that might happen would be through some sort of disaster that the public has to face. well, the idiots in the within the
Mhm.
public have to face the obviousness of their foolish mistakes. Screwworm is not going to do it, right? Um, and this
I
measles
agree.
outbreak isn't going to do it. It's not deadly enough, right? If there was some sort of situation where like there was a stark difference between the survivability rates of people who did take a vaccine and those who didn't take a vaccine, and that like there was more bodies piling up in the streets, maybe that would do it. But short of something visual that these idiots can interact with, like a corpse, um, within their lives, like I don't know what would necessarily do it for them. The best thing I think to do would be just educate people before they go into um, they go down that route, rather than having to change someone's mind, like actually educate people, actually have a good science foundation, and equip them with the tools to think critically about the claims from charlatans like RFK Jr. That's probably the best route. Again, it's a long-term route, and we have to wait for those voters, right, those young people, to grow up and then become active voters, for them to make a difference. But yeah, until then, there's no shortcuts, I think, in this fight. No easy way, no like fancy legislation that gets us out of the struggle against the simpletons.
Yeah.
And going back to I think what you mentioned earlier in terms of like well, pretty much you mentioned like how let's say the Republican or right-leaning media apparatus, they'll run stories of like that makes certain scientific research look bad, even though there's probably like legit and valid scientific research actually being conducted. But then you were also making the case like, well, maybe corporate Democrats should respond to that or be making the case for these programs. In that vein, like basically, like yes, in some sense, whatever the White House or an administration has like has some semblance of PR. But do you think there's a case to be made of like an administration needs like a full dedicated PR team to make the case for all of these programs and to really make all of these things salient in the public as opposed to like whatever. And I guess in this case, it's someone like Caroline Levitt for this administration,
Hmm.
but that's just like one person
Yeah,
as opposed to like a
I
dedicated PR team.
yeah, I'd say so. And it's an interesting idea. To like have an office specifically dedicated to messaging on this issue,
Science
and
communication
educating the pub.
office.
Yeah, a science communication officer. Yeah, that
Yeah.
might be. Yeah. Um, I actually like that idea, Corey. Not something I'd considered before, but like, yeah, I mean, this will be a Democratic administration exclusive office because the moment Republicans get in, they dismantle it. But that's fine. Actually, you don't need that. That'd be fine. But like, yeah, to during their time, like push his messaging, and maybe like organize like not just like from like the White House podium where like just like the political junkies like you and I, right, would see that messaging. Like we don't need to be turned, right? Like we would need more local and direct communication to reach the people wherever they are, and help with that, right? And then maybe like provide tools for schools, and programs, and more importantly, funding, if at all possible, to reach people. I think that would be pretty interesting. It's a good idea, Corey.
Yeah.
I occasionally have those every once in a while.
You get lucky.
But like, yeah, a broken clock is right twice a day. There's definitely a case you made that I am broken. But because like, yeah, in this article, and as we just highlighted multiple times, like I never heard of Screw Room before, headlines like this. And like going through the article, there was a little bit of like history and like, yeah, making it known that it was considered eradicated, 50, 60 years ago. But like, yeah, and well, I'm Canadian, so I'm, just by proximity or distance. I don't know if screw rumor is ever a problem in Canada because we have, tend to have harsh winters, and that typically eradicates many things. but it seems like you Americans were also not aware of it, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe we were at one point, maybe we were younger, but like it was not salient in your mind. So then and I would say, generally speaking, you're probably overall pretty informed overall. So like I can only imagine if I'm extrapolating to the general public, they're largely, unless like, there's someone who's 60 or 70 years old, if you're of a younger age, like we are here, you're just not going to be aware of it. But then like, unless you read an article like this, you're not going to be aware of the history. You're not going to be aware of like how there was some sort of program that resulted in its eradication. And that's where I would hope, or like in my thinking is like, well, maybe some dedicated PR team that like makes the rounds in all of the media apparatus that, makes all the points in this article or even expands upon it. Like actually point to the program. What was the strategy? Here was the result, the eradication. And well, highlighting what went wrong in this case. Yeah.
And I mean, this only is going to get worse, guys. Parasites are living through the winters now. Like they aren't being, they aren't going away because of harsh winter conditions anymore. So that's why they continually go northern expansion. And we're seeing, and we're going to see more and more of this going forward. Like insects are going to be able to live longer, further, and as the winters become less harsh. And I think that genuinely this is and only one example, but I do feel like the future is not going to be with these type of mass meat programs that we have on a national level. Like I just don't think that these are there's too many external threats. And if you're a farmer, you're going to have climate change, you're going to have parasites, you're going to have, all these different things that are coming in that could impact your profit margins. So in the future, you're just going to have farmers say, I'm just going to make my meat cells inside of my bioreactor is going to be a fermentation tank, and my bioreactor is not going to be a cow. There is going to be some incentive shift happen away against living animals, and I really do feel like the United States, like a good way to prevent exposure to stuff like this and a change that's going to happen is going to have to be shifting our farmers insurance and that kind of thing and start incentivizing like microbial protein production versus mammalian protein production. So I do feel like the future is in plants and lab grown like meat basically.
I mean, I agree, but also, I'm also biased, but in a good way, since I'm largely vegan. But everything that you said, I agree with. But in my mind, it should it almost certainly has to be also coupled with like a cultural shift of like people actually accepting these lab-grown meats or these genetically modified organisms or food coming from a bioreactor, right? Because I think there's a significant proportion of the population that will not accept lab-grown meat.
I think it's smaller than we think, and people, it's going to be so expensive. Like steak and stuff is going to be so expensive.
I don't disagree in terms of like once the economics works out. Again, ideology goes out the window once once their pocketbook is affected, or they see that it's easier on their pocketbook or on their money. But I'm sure there will still be some holdouts. But I'm curious,
for sure.
And I agree with everything that you said in terms of like how climate change will affect, let's say, migration patterns of parasites and microbes, all that stuff. Do you know if that's relevant in this case here? I think it was maybe touched upon in the article, like as a result of like I think the migratory patterns of the screwworm, but that like their migratory patterns, I think, get extended through climate change, but I could be making that up in my mind.
We could be facing, is it a La Nina year too on top of that? So you might just have like a double woozy happening there. I don't know.
Anyway, whether it's relevant, it is relevant overall. I agree with your assessment.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. I think it's only going to get worse. And Efon said it in chat. I totally agree. Climate change, the increase in threats, increase in these threats because there's no more winter frost as a firewall. Yeah, exactly, F1.
Yeah.
It's just the future is not going to be with the animals, guys. There's just too much of a question
But you can
mark.
go vegan now, just FYI. You don't have to wait for these technological breakthroughs.
But I do feel like making it at the consumer I do feel like in order to make the biggest impact, we have to have systems in place that make it no change for the consumer, that makes it as effortless as possible. But I agree, like ethically and for sure. I mean, but we'll just have to see when that shift happens. Like for example, I know that shift is probably going to happen with like corn ethanol, and as we, I hope move away from internal combustion engines into EVs. We're going to have basically all these cornfields that are being grown for specifically that 10% requirement in our gasoline for corn ethanol. As that is not needed, there's going to be more farm space just in general in the United States that's going to be needed to be utilized for something. So I do feel like that is going to happen. That's if friggin' Becerra doesn't try to walk back California's friggin' EV mandate by 2050, which is just insane that he would.
That's being entertained.
Yes, dude, I cannot believe him. He is like such an embarrassment, dude. I can't even believe it. But anyway.
But yeah,
2035 actually, I think.
Anyway. And I've posed this hypothetical to people, especially in vegan debates that I have. But like, yeah, if or when, probably more when plant-based beef, okay, or whatever that looks like, but actual beef, as in like when it's side by side in the supermarket, and it tastes exactly the same, and it's the same price, it's like most people will choose the plant-based, as in like, but like as long as like taste is fully replicated, as in like you cannot determine the difference in taste, and the price is the same. Like most people seem to naturally gravitate towards the plant-based option.
For sure. Oh, question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say but then what do we do? Because I have no doubt that there's going to be whatever 1%, 5%, 10% of the population that like they will not make the switch. But at that point, but like I'm curious how you would view this person. Of like, would you judge this person as being less ethical or moral? Of like, as in like this person making the calculation of like, I need to buy this animal-based beef, knowing that it's slaughtered from an animal, as opposed to the plant-based option, even though I cannot tell the difference and it's the exact same price.
I feel like that's the more that ethically that's very because suffering is involved when there didn't need to be. So I think that ethically it definitely makes sense to go against the bioreactor animal. A question from chat: what is the ecological duty we have to livestock species post meat central diets? I mean, the domesticated livestock animals, there is no ecological purpose that they hold. They actually harm the environment, specifically through methane production and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm sure in this post world, there would be maybe some hybrids that were made, but I don't know if they would be released in the wild like wolves in Yellowstone. I don't think it'll be that
bad. Like, this is not a big issue to solve. Like, I mean, taking it as our friend Corey according to Dr. Kirk presented, right? In which, right, let's say bioreactors or whatever, maybe some other method, like get so good that we can have some sort of perfect acceptable market replacement. I mean, like adoption won't be immediate, right? Like people have to learn about this, understand it, right? And then it's got to spread. We got to try it. And all that, right? Adoption rates will ramp up, and as adoption rates ramp up, like prices will fall for regular meat, right? Except for those who are like ideologically committed to it. But like that'll fall, and then cattle herders will have less money. They'll many of those will go out of business. There won't be people breeding these cows. These herds will like go down. Right, they'll be sold to other markets where like the adoption rates haven't risen so far. Right, let's say like this is at first
Or that's the new domesticated pet for the luxury family is owning a cow.
I don't know about that part, but like but yeah, so for well-off nations, maybe this some sort of technology like this will probably be the first place to spread. But in other nations like and lower income nations, it'll get to them last. So those cows will be shifted there. And so anyway, the point is that by the time we have some sort of a global first world shift, like those cow herds will have been like greatly diminished. So it won't be like that big of a thing.
Exactly. Totally agree. Any closing thoughts, guys, on this or anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, I guess one last point that I'll add on, and actually was brought up in chat, is like, regardless of if or when the full plant-based substitute arrives to the market and there's widespread adoption, there will still probably be a place, or even like, well, actually going back to the hypothetical of like, how do we judge the person of like, this person is willing to pay a premium for the slaughtered cow option? Right? Should that be available at that point?
$1,000 a steak, literally.
Yeah. I don't want to live in that world personally, but it would not surprise me if that's somewhere down the road.
I mean, like Elon Musk could spend $1 million a steak, so he has all the money in the world that he could ever want. Well, thank you guys. Thank you. Go, Prime.
I
Sorry.
want to tackle that for a second. Yeah, you should be able to. You absolutely 100% should. You should, like, if you're going to take on the expense, you should be able to get yourself a natural cow. There's going to be, like, it's hard to imagine a world where there's literally no market for this like period, right? Like I could see this being a luxury for like the most like well off, right? Like I don't know, like in actuality, I don't know if we'll ever have something that is completely 1-to-1. Maybe it will, right? But even like in Star Trek, right, with the replicators, right? Like even those things didn't like fully like match like the real thing. Like they did a fantastic job, but like you're not even then.
Okay, yeah, but we're not comparing replicator or trying to develop replicator technology. Like
yeah, we're doing something worse. There's something worse.
Well, no, but that was like pure fantasy, as opposed to like we're taking meaningful steps to a bioreactor. Now,
yeah, I didn't say that we weren't. I understand what the problem is, but like built into your hypothetical was that this would be like a 1-to-1 replacement, and it's probably not going to be the case. There'll probably be some difference, and it doesn't have to be a significant difference. It might be so little that in the end people do make the moral choice or whatever, right? But still, like 1-to-1, maybe I could be wrong, but like
I see no reason why not only can it not be 1-to-1, like as in like probably even like better taste and probably actually overall better quality control, because you just have more control over a bioreactor. Like you can I would say it's much easier to tweak the flavor in a bioreactor versus an entire cow and the meat that it produces. Just like we see it now with like it's not a 1-to-1, but all of the food science that goes into developing like the perfect Dorito that you can't stop eating.
Once the steak hits your mouth, it just dissolves. You're like, yeah.
Okay, fine, that's fine. I can work with this. Let's say yes, it's everything that Corey says, right? Okay, everything that Corey says is the case. Still, people are going to want the real thing. There's going to be an interest, right? Even if it's just psychological.
Should that be an option though?
Yes,
you're
that's
saying
what I was saying before.
Okay, yeah, I know. So okay, well then I'm going to push back, because like I think that then there's an ethical question, or there's a more salient ethical question, as in, for example, this is not an exactly 1-to-1 analogy, but like, okay, if or when, we get to true autonomous driving cars, okay, and it's borne out in the data that truly autonomous self-driving cars are safer than human-driven cars, should a human have the right to drive a car?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. I don't know that I would. I'm
Yeah.
on the opposite side of that.
I could be in favor of putting incentives so that people don't drive cars themselves. But like even if it's safer, that should we give up a complete lack of control? Like, are these things as safe in that like the actual like ability to get a human from point A to point B, right? Will be
In every
less
metric that we
back.
can currently measure, that is safe.
I'm with you. That they can go from one place to another, but like, are they secure? Like, are they capable of hacking? And what restrictions could the government put on the ability of these cars to travel from wherever, right? Will some people want the ability to travel without putting it within some sort of system that could be accessed by the government as to where they went, right? Like assuming they can disable anything that's getting off a signal as well. But the point is that like, yeah, people should be able to go to places anonymously if they want. So there are other factors beyond safety that should absolutely be.
But like, if it's shown that like, again, this is like almost pure fantasy, but like, if we get to the world of like, we're now in the place that autonomous driving, it's like any sort of auto fatality, it just like never happens. It's like, it's more like down to zero. Even in that world, like yeah.
We should wildly incentivize people to not drive in that world. Yeah. I'm for all kinds of incentivizations. I want that world. I'd be one of the people who almost would never drive. I could see a situation where I might need to. And I should have that option without necessarily being punished for it, right? Maybe the punishments are extra harsh if I like get into an accident, or something, or especially if I, take a life, because it's just never extra level of negligence because there was a safer option. So but I'd be willing to allow for this, right? I think and you incentivize most people. Most people will take that option, and most people will like there'll be a social stigma against driving at some point. That might take a while to happen, but like that all will work itself out. But absolutely not having the ability to drive, even in an emergency, even if the car is somehow damaged, right? The auto pilot is damaged, and now, well, no one's allowed. There's no steering wheel. I can't move this vehicle.
Well, I imagine like in this ultra future, like autonomous cars will not have steering wheels.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like a place where it doesn't have steering wheels at all, and that means like, well, this is a hunk of junk when we need to move people for whatever reason. Like we can't use the autopilot, and now we're completely reliant on the computer. At that point, that seems like a bad idea for a number of reasons. Actually, yeah. The more I think about it, the more I think that would be a disaster.
Yeah, but so like expanding out of like let's say if we get to my world, probably there's probably going to be like no car manufacturer that's going to manufacture like a car with a steering wheel, because like no one's the market's going to be so small. But then like should someone, if you have a response to that, go for it.
I mean, but like if at that point, like if you're saying, well, no one has the ability to drive because like the government has mandated, or somehow, I don't know, for whatever reason, we no longer have like the physical hardware to do so, then I don't know, the point is moot, right? Like
no, that's what I wasn't done with my point. I was like,
okay.
Should someone have the right to like, as in like they have enough money and resources like to commission a custom car that now has a steering wheel that can self-drive?
Old school.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, this seems like a very strange world, but like, sure. Yeah.
I mean, we do have we have banned like frog gras, and other types of like protein production specific ways, like in our society, and I do feel like there's I do think
What's
this
it,
is
foie gras?
That's where pretty much ducks are force fed, generally speaking, with a tube to pretty much create a high fat liver. If I remember correctly, that's the
fatty
organ.
liver.
Mm.
Yeah, and I do think this is one of my bold predictions that I think that's going to happen in our lifetimes. I do think that humans are going to be banned from driving on the freeways by insurance companies. Insurance companies are going to say, we can't afford, and you can, if you want to, as a human, drive on a freeway, but it's just going to be cost too much. It's $100,000 a month in order to do it. So it effectively like bans it to the point because they're not going to want to.
Unless they're ultra wealthy, but there's going to be wealthy people.
Yeah, there's gonna. I think that you're just not going. They're not going to be able to do it. There's going to be lawsuits and stuff because like human drivers are so unpredictable, and there's going to be high speed, like too fast for human reaction speeds, cars driving on the freeway autonomously, and they're going to say, hey, if you want to drive, you can drive. You can't drive on the freeways. You can drive on side streets to wherever you want, but freeways are going to be AI like driven, like robots only. So
You're basically saying Minority Report. I hear you, but like I don't know. I mean, look, I'm fine with that, but like the question was, should we not be able to drive at all? And
I think,
like,
yeah. I mean, I think that you're gonna have basically like tracks and race car like kind of like things kind of like popping off because of that. I think you're going to have a lot more people going to these places and kind of driving like people used to, and people would be like, okay, you can drive as fast as you want on the racetrack, but like here we're not going. And there's going to be a lot of more people like that are interested in like racing cars and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the ethical or moral compass will shift, as in like to your point, Greg, with the foie gras. It's like even people that eat meat, they generally like. There's a reason why this practice is largely, or it's a growing banning across the world, because it's like even though they're okay with the cows and the pigs, but like force feeding a duck.
There's some line.
Is like that's a step too far, and I obviously I don't know for sure, and I guess maybe we will find out, but like I foresee that it will get to the point of like if autonomous driving is so safe that like pretty much like no car fatalities happen, it's going to be viewed as unethical to be a self-driver, and people will just not tolerate it, and it will be in effect, well, as in laws will probably be passed because it's so unethical to drive under those systems.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Just as it's viewed as in our concept of animal welfare has evolved, that like yes, even meat eaters recognize that foie gras is probably not the greatest practice, and that like it should be outlawed. I think our moral compass is further and further shifting in that direction.
I agree.
Welfare. And so it's like that's where at least the case that I'm making is like if or when we get to the place of like plant-based or bioreactor meat can truly replace animal-based meat, I think the moral compass will shift that like, yes, this is now just so morally outrageous that you should not have the right to consume animal-based meat.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a black market for it, sure, but like you can't just like have an elephant steak, like like because it's like an endangered or whatever. I mean, like, you're always going to have a black market because they'll be banned, but I don't think that it's going to be legal and permissible. But
yeah, that's my speculation.
Yeah,
and I would agree with that. As in that ethical framework, I don't personally think you should have the right to pay for whatever your $1,000 or $1 million steak just for the luxury of saying I ate a slaughtered animal, even though it tastes the same.
Yeah.
That seems weird to me.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's gonna be to the point where it's good enough, and people are just like, what? Why are we allowing this anymore? So hopefully, maybe. Or we just all go extinct because nobody cares about the environment and it all overpowers us and we live in fallout like dugout holes in the ground. We'll see. Anything else that you guys wanted to add on this?
No, not on my end.
All right. You guys
I'm at twitch.tv, youtube.com/PrimeCai, PrimeCays. Love to have you. Thanks so much.
And you can find me on Twitch, CoreyCam84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, Substack, TikTok. It's Corey Campbell. And always a pleasure. Looking forward to next week.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you as always. Have a good one.
Take care. Be well.
Likewise. All right, guys. That was fun. I always love talking to them. Cool. What do you guys think? I'm curious what. All right. I'm curious what you guys think of the stream, the landscape versus portrait mode. Are you guys keeping in the portrait mode, and it just is a little harder to read, or do you guys? What do you think? Are you guys using the landscape mode at all, and just chilling and watching? I'm curious, like the TikTok people. I'm curious your thoughts. Nope, you're not. You're just staying in portrait. Okay, cool, Pierre. Okay, sick. Awesome. Thank you, Charity. Thank you for your feedback, guys. If you're lurking or you normally lurk, I would love to know. Okay, yeah, Souls, check it out. I don't either, Michelle. I do not like the way chat is on landscape. I would prefer, if I was doing dishes or something, I would put it in landscape where I wasn't chatting. But if I was chatting, I would want it in portrait mode. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, because this is a great way for me to kind of like interact with the content, chat, and I feel like for the first time I'm actually not like I'm not sacrificing one platform for the other, which is fun, you know, for me as like a producer. You know, I feel like I'm actually creating something that I'm proud of in both spots. So it's nice to know that it's nice to know that you like it. For once? What do you mean by for once? I'm never like playing a game or anything. I'm always locked in. Portrait's good. Nice. On my app pod landscape. Okay, cool, Helen. Nice. Cool, guys. I'm gonna go get a drink of water real quick. I will be right back, and then we're going to iPad is a great idea. Nice. Yeah, Dr. Soph. Yeah, Heather, we're all root for you. I'm so sorry that everything's happening, but you're staying in my thoughts. So thanks for keeping us updated. For real. Okay, this I like in this. I had to do a manual thing for my my focus. Okay. How you guys think? What do you think? Do you guys want to do? Are we gonna be? What do you guys think? I'm gonna put a poll in chat. Okay, we're gonna put a poll. Here we go. Figuring this out. Figuring out how to. No way, Nancy. Why? What happened? Oh my gosh, that's awful. Okay, guys. Red is for Republican MAGA React. Okay. And blue, red, MAGA React. Okay, guys. Okay, guys, here we go. This is it. So we're going to do 1 minute poll here. So are we going to be doing MAGA react content, debate content, or are we going to be doing pro-democratic react analysis? Are we going to be adversarial reacting, or are we going to be analyzing? Are we feeling debate heavy with red, or are we doing like an interesting discussion with blue? What do you guys think? I want you to vote. Okay, I'm going to go. I'll be right back. Okay. Vote. All right. All right. Okay, people are feeling pro-dem. We're feeling making the world a better place and figuring out how we can do that. All right, I like that. I was confused. Okay. Here, let's try it again. Okay. Yeah, let's try to. Okay, let's try again. Here we go. Standard poll. So, like, what are we reacting to a MAGA and roasting them, or are we Dems trying to improve the world and figuring out how we can do that? What are you thinking? We need you to research it for who? What am I researching for who? Cool. We're feeling better. All right. It's okay. It's okay. Wow, everyone's feeling pro dem. We're feeling good. We're feeling trying to. Okay, cool. It's okay. I like it. I appreciate it. I want to change it up too. We did an anti-MAGA like debunking, so let's raise yeah, we got seven for the pro dem ideas. All right, guys, I got a good one.
I think we may be in a moment of foreign policy rupture.
I want to say this as seriously as possible. I love Ezra Klein. I'm not joking. I don't care who you are or where you are on the political spectrum. I genuinely think that he has like the best, most thought-provoking political content that I am like, damn, I am very jealous. I think of like his stuff. I'm like, dang, he's so good. And I don't even like agree like with like him politically necessarily all the time, but like how he thinks. I just love Ezra Klein and how that he like approaches problems and how he has people on that are specifically looking to tackle this problem and how he really engages with ideas. You know, I read Abundance, incredible book. If you've not read Abundance, okay, read it. Get the audiobook, read it, guys. Like, because you listening to how people talk about abundance is not the same as you reading Abundance, and it's still good and you should read it. It's really, 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 really good. Yes, Dr. Swift, how he uses his platform is so important. Exactly. It's exactly what I was talking about. I made a short today talking about how media personalities, columnists like Ezra Klein have a duty to bring scientists on, to bring people on that are subject matter experts now. We have to push these places into a higher discussion. It's not okay to just constantly have journalists on to talk about issues. And I think that we have to we have to engage with it. So here we go. So I'm curious what it is. Basically, what's the left's version of foreign policy after Trump? So it's just posted 3 days ago. I'm curious what he's talking about, what he's thinking about, and here we go.
May be in a moment of foreign policy rupture in the Democratic Party. It reminds me of years ago when the Iraq War remade the Democratic Party. The Iraq War, which is why Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton in the 2008 primary, changing the course of American politics.
Because I will offer a clear contrast. As somebody who never supported this war, thought it was a bad idea, I don't want to just end the war, but I want to end the mindset that got us into war in the first place. That's the kind of leadership I can provide.
Right now, Israel and Gaza feel to me like they are becoming the center of a similar rupture. The thing that started here for me was a few weeks ago, Brian Schatz, who is a Democratic senator from Hawaii. He's often talked of as maybe the next Senate Democratic leader after Chuck Schumer. So a guy with an incredible sense of the pulse of the party. He tweeted, "I'm not into blacklisting anyone from future work in their area of expertise, but I do think it's fair to want a whole new crop of foreign policy staffers in the next Democratic administration. It's not like the same 120 people are the only people who know anything."
Wow. Who? I do not even know who that is. Brian Schatz. Who is that? He's he's a senator from Hawaii. Wow. I have no idea who he even is. He's serving since 2012. Ness, how's it going? Wow. He's served in the House of Reps 98 to 2006. Wow. And then he was the lieutenant governor of Hawaii from 2010 to 2012. Cool. Wow, I had no idea. Interesting.
Then Senator Chris Van Hollen, again, very well respected in the party, very much someone in its mainstream. He wrote an opinion piece for The Times, laying out how different he thinks the Democratic Party's policy on Israel needs to be, how badly he thinks the Biden administration's policy failed. And then he went on to say, primary voters won't trust any Democratic presidential candidate who does not have a record of moral and strategic clarity on these issues, especially if, as a legislator, he or she voted to send Mr. Netanyahu bombs even as his government imposed a total blockade on Gaza. Nor will they support a candidate who plans to re-enlist the senior Democratic decision makers who whitewashed the truth during the Biden administration and refuse to acknowledge their complicity.
Yeah.
Complicity is a strong word in a internecine Democratic fight here. Then we've seen a number of Democratic primaries beginning to split over Gaza. It has become an essential issue in the Michigan Democratic Senate primary, where Abdul El-Sayed leads in many of the new polls.
You're watching Democrats bend over backwards in the most pretzel-like way to justify the war. They're like, this is an illegal war, but if they asked me, I'd fund it. If you don't have the courage to call out the moral abomination of a genocide, then what do you have the courage to call out in the first place? This is a moral Rorschach test for our party.
It was very present in the New Jersey House primary that Adam Hamawi, a doctor who had treated the injured in Gaza, just won.
I was running on something very simple, is that we should be spending on healthcare, not bombs. We should be spending on our communities here, in New Jersey, in America, and not funding bombs overseas for, atrocities and genocide. We should not be funding the endless wars that we're seeing.
It's been at the center of the House primary in my district in New York, where Brad Lander is running against the incumbent, Dan Goldman. And much of Lander's attack is centered on Goldman's support for Israel.
Representative Goldman does not view what's happening there as a genocide. I've been fighting against Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza since 1990. I've never heard him say the word occupation in that context.
Lander, too, is well ahead in recent polls.
Wow.
Into all of this comes Trump's war.
That's interesting, considering in New York the Jewish population is so high. That is very interesting.
War in Iran, a war he has fought alongside Israel, and just the general failure of his tariff and foreign policy. And so it's made this moment a moment when something new really could emerge. The Democratic Party is not going to go back to Bidenism. It is not going to try to replicate Trumpism. So what would something different actually look like? Beyond just Gaza, though of course including Gaza, what would it do differently? Matt Duss is the Executive Vice President at the Center for International Policy. He's worked at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and the Center for American Progress. He served as Senator Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor, and he's advised Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Duss is really at the center of foreign policy thinking among the elected left. I want to have him on to explore a question that I think might come to define the 2028 primary. What would a left foreign policy look like? What would it actually try to do in the world? As always, my email, EzraKleinShow@nytimes.com.
I mean, it's a good question. Foreign policy, like broadly, with Israel, of what like rebuilding USAID? You know, like how is the United States going to be positioned in the world in regards to like soft power, the military bases in the world? I mean, there's so many open questions now, and like there is so. I think with Israel specifically, I mean, even Netanyahu now doesn't want funds from the United States, which is kind of odd. I feel like he wants like more independence in the eyes of the world to kind of like stand alone. But like at the same time, like Israel definitely has like this big brother that's a bully, you know, in the back of his pocket that they're using in order to you know, push into other nations. So yeah, it's a really interesting question. All right, guys, I'm going to do a playback speed 1.25, so it's 25% faster. Should be okay. Shouldn't be too abrupt, but let's see.
Matt Duss, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you wrote a piece in The Nation recently saying that Democrats can't avoid a reckoning on Gaza. What is that reckoning?
Well, I think first it involves understanding that we're not going to sidestep Gaza as an issue as the party moves forward. I do think the Gaza debate, the Gaza debacle, the Gaza genocide stands for a lot that is wrong with our politics. And I think if Democrats are going to be able to offer a compelling alternative vision of how they're going to govern, they really need to have a discussion, have a debate, have a reckoning with what the Biden administration did, not just with the policy, but with the campaign of what I think was clearly disinformation that accompanied that policy. And that's going to involve some very tough conversations. That's going to be putting, you know, a spotlight on some key officials who served in the Biden administration, and some of whom probably hope to serve again and probably should not get to.
What do you mean by a campaign of disinformation?
I mean, I'm looking at, you know, the way that the Biden administration talked, the White House, the State Department. You had this constant refrain of, oh, we're not seeing that. We've not made that assessment.
We have not made an assessment or drawn the conclusion that they are in violation of international humanitarian law when it comes to the provision of humanitarian assistance into Gaza.
Given the nature of Hamas's track record of co-locating itself with civilians, using civilians as human shields, we're unable to make a conclusive determination as it relates to violations of international humanitarian law. We at this
regulated goods and services. What? Okay.
Time have not made an assessment that that the Israelis are in violation of U.S. law.
And it was clear that they were choosing not to see things that were happening. Everyone else in the world could see these things were happening. Palestinians themselves were reporting these things were happening. Israeli and Palestinian human rights groups, international NGOs were reporting that these things were happening. This is one of the things that I think underlines this disconnect here is the Biden administration made an assessment within a month of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Within a month, Secretary of State Blinken came out and made an assessment that Russia is committing war crimes.
Yesterday, President Biden said that, in his opinion, war crimes
March 2022
have been committed in Ukraine. Personally, I agree.
The idea that they could not make a similar assessment of a military into whose operations the United States has vastly more visibility, I think is just not credible.
So you know many of the people in the Biden administration. You've talked to them. What do you think happened? And when I ask, I mean in a very specific way, what do you think were the set of commitments or values? Because these people see themselves as having deep commitments and deep values that, in your view, went wrong and led to the policy that we had.
Yeah. I mean, I think first, this really does come down to Joe Biden, not only Joe Biden, but Joe Biden, I think, had a very particular conception, both of how U.S. policy toward the Middle East, how U.S. policy toward Israel should work. And he had a very serious confidence, I would say misplaced, but he had great confidence in his own judgment about how to use U.S. foreign policy. He had a view of the U.S.-Israel relationship, which he said many times, there should be no daylight. If there were differences in opinion, differences in policy, those should be expressed privately, whereas in public, the United States should remain essentially in lockstep with whatever the Israeli government was doing. And I think he has had that view for a very long time. His view was this: okay, we're going to express some differences with what Israel's doing here and there, but we're not really going to put any real pressure on them to change policy. As a former staffer myself, I know that once the boss has kind of laid down the parameters of where he or she is willing to go and not go, I think staffers start to tend to shape, you stop arguing and you say, okay, these are the guardrails, and you start to shape policy within those guardrails. And Biden made clear repeatedly, and he made clear actually during the 2020 primary, when Senator Sanders kicked off a debate about conditioning military aid to Israel. I mean, Biden at the time called that a preposterous idea. There was that one time when he withheld one shipment of 2,000-pound bombs. But other than that, there were really no consequences for what the entire world could see was an ongoing set of atrocities.
I have a question about this.
Yeah, I feel like, Netanyahu is a horrific leader that has been for over 20 years now, creating and pushing Israel further and further to the right into this hyper nationalistic problem. I mean, it is. I mean, just imagine if Trump was the president for 25 years, what the United States would look like, who and what it would be doing, and, how other nations would stop dealing and allowing the United States to have a part of their politics. Right. So I think, I don't think that we have to we have to separate ourselves from what's happening politically, and also aid the people in Palestine, to build their nation. And I feel like that's where we sit now, where we have this the complete destruction of their cities, of their educational, of their economic, way of living. And we have to rebuild it. We have to help them rebuild. Israel has to pay for it. The United States has to pay for it economically. And how that happens, I don't know. But we have to do what we can do to help them rebuild at this point.
That maybe you know the answer to, because it's always confused me. I think it's fair to say at this point, for the left, Gaza exists as if not the central failure of the Biden administration. And I agree with you that much of that comes down to Joe Biden himself. When Biden was being pushed to step down, some of the strongest people fighting that effort, trying to keep Biden in place, were Bernie Sanders and AOC. And I never quite understood why. You know them better than I do. Particularly given the centrality of Gaza now, and obviously that was true in 2024. What was going on there?
I mean, I can say what I know. From my perspective, I think their view was, they knew Biden. Obviously, they disagreed with the Gaza policy. They were two of the most vocal critics of the Gaza policy. But they knew that when it came to other policies, in domestic, economic policy, trade policy, they at least had an ear in the White House. Joe Biden and his team had been willing to talk with, engage with them on a whole range of issues beyond foreign policy. But I got to say, I feel like there was also, I think, a pragmatic sense, and this is just my suspicion. I'm not, I don't have any inside information. I think it makes sense. Listen, if someone's going to push Joe Biden out, it's not going to be the progressive left. They're very aware. I think all progressives in the Democratic Party are aware that we have a centrist establishment that is always looking for reasons to call us, disunifying wreckers. So I think that kind of played into their hesitance as well.
Let me then ask you about the way the policy was changing. As you say, that in the 2020 campaign, Bernie Sanders kicked off a debate.
I think I think that causing, hey, how's it going? I do think that leading with people that and giving through the algorithms, I do feel like there was such a push by people calling him Genocide Joe, or and saying that they were never going to vote for Joe Biden. Why would they listen to people that were never going to vote for him and never going to vote for Democrats again? Do you know what I mean? Why would you give? If we just step back and say, instead of the Democratic Party, it was a chess club, and you had people saying, I hate chess, I will never play chess, but I want to write your constitution as a club on what happens in the chess club because that's what I want. You'd say, no, I don't care who you are. You're not going to govern, and you're not going to govern our chess club, you know? And so I do think that like people in the internet are hyperbolic on purpose in order to try to get attention to the issues that they want, and they drive wedge issues to people and make people have say specific things, say specific words, so that you're either with us or against us. And there is nuance that happens in the world. Like I don't know, and I feel like that having these specific wedge issues hurts us. I think that you can disagree with how the Biden administration handled this, but also support Democratic candidates in how they are going to be the ones that are dealing with this issue better. Right. And we literally see that with the Republican Party right now. We see that with how the Trump administration wants to create a casino royale, in the Gaza Strip, right? I mean, that is untenable. Like, there's no way that is the path forward, right? So, like, what do we do? Like, I don't feel like slandering the Democratic Party is the path forward if you want to see progressive change happen in this issue. I just don't see it.
Aid, which is something that has been anathema in the Democratic Party for a long time.
Yeah, I agree, Ellie. Yeah, purity testing has been detrimental to our party. Yeah, I agree. And I think, like, especially on an issue that isn't, I mean, Ezra brought up a good point, like with Obama and Clinton in 2008. I mean, there was the Iraq War, which was a wedge issue, right? It was purity testing to the highest degree. But I feel like the difference is that the United States started the Iraq War. We led that international coalition, and we lied to the world in order to create that war and to destabilize that region, caused the formation of ISIS, caused these huge problems down the road. And at least in those scenarios, that makes sense, right? I feel like that, like, the United States is deeply in the center of it. I don't think that the United States is the primary driver in what Israel is doing after October 7th. I just don't believe that that's the case. I think that they would be doing that otherwise. Maybe they're emboldened. Maybe Netanyahu is strengthened, and maybe he's going further than he would. But I don't think that they're thinking, okay, now with the United States at our back, now we can do all this stuff. I think that they would be doing it otherwise, basically. That's just how I feel.
All of a sudden, it's not. I thought the op-ed by Senator Chris Van Hollen was a pretty significant moment. I mean, he's an establishment figure who's been very outspoken on Israel for a long time, it's worth saying. Let me ask it directly. What, in your view, should the Democrats' position towards Israel be? What is the right policy here?
Well, I think, first of all, it's to end aid. It's to end, I mean, Israel is a wealthy country. There's really no need for...
And it's only like 10% of their military budget anyway. So, like, that's the thing. And that's why Netanyahu is saying we don't need it. So let's just end it so that it doesn't look bad. You know what I mean? So it's not enough that Netanyahu's going like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to defend ourselves. Like, we should absolutely like end aid for the military. And I mean, we should have the aid that we have in the world and that we establish in the world should be by USAID and soft power. It shouldn't be, I really don't believe that it should be through military and might and all that kind of stuff. I feel like we are not the world police. I don't think that that's good. I don't like that type of hegemony. I think that the United Nations, now that is a different idea, right? The United Nations and how the world can democratically come together, and maybe the United Nations should have like some type of army, or something that can actually make decisions together. You know, obviously we have like the Security Council with Russia, and that there's that whole issue there. But yeah, I think that having the UN being that world police effort that would be much better than just having the United States be that.
American taxpayers to continue to subsidize their defense budget. I mean, that's a position that was put out there by AOC, and I think about 5 minutes later, Rahm Emanuel came up right behind. So very interesting. These are two people who kind of represent different poles in the party, but I do think we're getting close to that. But then moving from that, I think it's not just aid, it is sales. And we do have laws on the books. I mean, this is why I found the whole conditioning aid, conditioning arms sales debate so bizarre, the way it was treated as some kind of, kind of weird punishment. We have laws on the books that condition aid to every country, according to a set of principles, whether it's the Leahy Law, whether it's the Arms Export and Control Act. There are existing laws that, prohibit or restrict the sale of arms to militaries or military units that have a proven record of human rights abuses. We have simply not upheld those laws. Multiple administrations have simply ignored them. And again, this is what I was saying about the Biden administration.
I have a question for you. Would you say we follow those laws in general and make an exception for Israel, or do we not follow them in general?
I think there are certain countries, Israel being one, Egypt, others, countries that we have
Saudi
determined.
Arabia?
Saudi Arabia, yes. I mean, so I think, listen, the arms lobby is an extremely powerful one. There's a strong incentive to just kind of push these sales through.
Do you
so
think it comes from the arms lobby, or do you think it comes from the American foreign policy establishments or the president's feeling that the alliances with these countries are important for other reasons?
I think it's all those things. I mean, in some cases, it might be one more than the other, but I do think this gets to a much bigger problem, is that the security state, the military-industrial complex, whatever word we're going to use now, I mean, this is a real problem. This is part of how we ended up in this ridiculous war with Iran. But getting back to what the Democrats' position should be on Israel, I think, yes, first of all, uphold our existing laws when it comes to arms sales, but also let's really tee up a policy that empowers, the best actors in Israel and Palestine rather than the worst ones. Because unfortunately, as I see it, that is what our policy has been doing for the past 20 plus years.
Can you describe how it's done that and then what the alternative would look like?
Right. I mean, I think we've had a policy where basically all the consequences and disincentives and punishments and sticks, so to speak, have been focused on one side. Not entirely, but mostly. That's on one side, the less powerful side, the Palestinians. There's always some kind of new condition that's placed on them to receive aid. And, and again, some of this is legit. Obviously, we should impose consequences for terrorism. I mean, that is true. But at the same time, there are zero consequences that are imposed, any real meaningful consequences that are ever imposed on the more powerful side, the Israeli side. And I think this dynamic has really, given Israel a very reasonable belief that they can just press forward with de facto annexation, which is ongoing as we speak, with entrenching their control over all of the land of Israel and Palestine in perpetuity, and to weaken and diminish the Palestinian national movement to just a completely controlled subject population within a greater Israel. That's the situation we're in right now. And the reason this keeps ticking in one direction is because there's no reason for it not to. I mean, there are no consequences for more and more extremist leaders in Israel to raise and implement more extremist policies. At the same time, Palestinians look at that and they look at their own kind of ineffective, corrupt leadership, and they're like, what is this? They see only more occupation, and it empowers extremist voices who are saying, no, the way to get our freedom is through the gun. And that's what I mean when we have pursued policies that have empowered some of the worst actors who don't want peace.
So be specific for me. What are these policies, and what would their alternative or opposite look like? Yeah,
I mean, I would say, first of all, let's look at Gaza. You need, first of all, governance, basic, Gaza, as I'm sure your listeners know, I mean, it's a ruin now. It's a series of tent cities. But the way to bring order.
I mean, so before we get into that, I was curious, what is the portion of U.S. arms sales in the world? I was just curious, what is the amount, is that really that? I'm just curious. Is it really that much money? Do you know what I mean? Could the U.S. arms sales really be large enough that it could actually drive? Because with power comes money. With money comes power, kind of thing. So I can definitely understand that. So I'm just curious. Do we see that? Is there enough money there in order to actually make it make sense? Let's see here real quick. Let's look at this. Here we go. Okay. So I'm just getting this all set up, guys. My new setup. Okay, so powered by AI. Okay, so my question was, what's the size of USA arms sales as a portion of the DoD budget, and then as a portion of worldwide arms sales? The U.S. arms exports. So the headline figure is $318 billion in total U.S. arms transfers to foreign buyers, which breaks into $118 billion through foreign military sales, government to government, and $200 billion to authorized direct commercial sales. The $218 billion FMS, which is the government to government figure, itself includes $97 billion funded by the allied partnered nations and a $12 billion via the foreign military financing and $9 billion to DoD partner capacity programs. So as a portion of the DoD budget, it's about 14% of the DoD budget, the government to government, and then total transfer, including DCS, which is the direct commercial sales, is 40. Wow, that's a lot. 40% of the budget. The ratio is somewhat apples to oranges, though. Foreign arms sales are largely paid for by the buyers, not drawn into the DoD appropriations. I'm just thinking, like, how are these arms manufacturers? How are they being paid by the DoD in our government, right? This is that whole idea of the congressional, the corporation, the war machine, the private contractors, all that kind of stuff, and then these foreign governments. How are they all like coming together? As a portion of the worldwide arms sales, here's the cleanest global denominator. Is the top 100, is the Spirit's top 100 arms producing companies. Combined arms revenues reached $680 billion in 2024, the highest SIPRI has ever recorded. The 39 U.S. companies in that ranking accounted for $334 billion, close to half. So that is a lot. Wow. So the right framing depends on what you mean by U.S. arms sales. U.S.-based company arms revenue, 49% of global top 100 revenue. This is the correct denominator matched comparison. U.S. exports of government to government versus global production is 17%, but this makes two different measures and isn't a meaningful share. Bottom line, by the most coherent comparison, U.S. firms produce roughly half of the world's arms revenue, and U.S. arms exports run about 14% of the DoD budget, or 39% if you count. So I'm just curious, like, how much of our budget was going to other nations? You know what I mean? So, I mean, we do fund a large, 50% of the arms revenue are U.S.-based companies. So we definitely do disproportionately make money and benefit from pushing armed conflicts in the world by half of the top 100 revenue being U.S.-based companies. That is pretty wild. That is pretty wild.
The way to bring services to people, the way to bring real control is to have it governed by Palestinians. That's ultimately the only way that you're going to be able to.
Can that include Hamas?
I think it has to include some kind.
That's the problem, guys. I mean, if you're going to have, and I do believe this is the case, you have to have the United States and Israel funding the economic development of Palestine and the Gaza Strip. The Palestine would be the country, right? How do you give money in Israel's mind? How do you give money to the Palestinian people without giving it to Hamas? So in that is the problem. They've had Yeah, I mean that is the ultimate question, and why so much of the foreign policy Israel says needs to go through them, right?
Of tacit agreement with Hamas. As we all know, Hamas remains in Gaza. It has not been destroyed. So they continue to be a relevant force. But I think what we have to come around to is just understanding that, the disarmament of Hamas will never happen under a situation of occupation. It will only conceivably happen under a situation of legitimate Palestinian self-governance.
And what does it look like on the other side? What have these policies been, and what would they be towards Israel?
I mean, first off, let's start to create disincentives for these policies. Let's state plainly that the settlements are illegal. That officials who
the amount of settlements and how I'm pretty sure what's the number of settlements into the West Bank after October 7th by Israel. I had seen it was like more into the West Bank than ever before, like than the history of this conflict. Israel had expanded more into the West Bank than like after October 7th than ever before. And that's so obviously they basically, under the guise of attacking Hamas, they basically which they went into the West Bank. So if you're not aware, the Gaza Strip is over here. Gaza Strip, here's Israel, and all these guys were always trying to look at maps in order to understand the world. If you don't know where something is on the world, try to look at it on the map. Here's Egypt, right, on one of the borders on the left here, and then Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and then Israel, okay, and then Jerusalem right here, and then the West Bank. So it's a disconnected portion from Gaza, if you weren't aware. And then to the north here, Lebanon. To the right, Jordan. So it's specifically this West Bank region that people are talking about.
Who support them and facilitate their growth should face consequences. They should face sanctions. I think, one of the very few good things that the Biden administration did on Israel-Palestine was, sanctions against violent settlers. But I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. But I think it will start to shift the dynamic once you show that there are real costs for these policies.
Let me ask you about attention.
Yeah, the settlers are wild. I mean, and a lot of them are Americans. A lot of them are Americans that are basically super right-wing nationalists that are coming forward, and they see their job as expanding the country of Israel, and they're going and planting new settlements into this area, which the IDF is supposed to stop. They say that they try to stop it because it creates a danger for the IDF, because then they have to go and defend these people. So the IDF is supposed to stop them if they see this happening. But if they get so entrenched and they get too developed, now the IDF has to defend them, and that is the kind of like that is the problem that happens. There needs to be a concerted effort to find a governing body in Palestine that isn't Hamas. The PLO doesn't seem to be popular either, from what I understand. I agree, Miles. Yeah, I think that is how I see it too. And every day it seems like it is less likely to happen. This conflict has been troubling for a long time, and again, it gets worse and worse by the hour. Yeah. I mean, I like the personally, I like the 3-state solution. I think Jerusalem is literally a site that 3 different religions all claim to be their homeland. And I feel like that has to be a UN governing body. And obviously, Gaza should be they should have their own country. But that is it is, 3-state solution is universally unliked. 2-state solution becoming less and less popular as this happens, because Israel's zeitgeist is just pushed more and more to the right. But it's pushed more and more into this hyper nationalist view, and they don't want to see a Palestinian state be rewarded based off of the terrorist attacks in their eyes.
Something Biden administration officials often told me was, including on the show at times, was that there was only so far they could push or restrain Netanyahu, and they thought it was better to remain in conversation, to remain with some leverage over the Israeli government. It's funny, when you were talking about why AOC and Bernie might have wanted Biden to stay on the ticket despite deeply disagreeing with him on Gaza, well, they had his ear. And, even right now, there's huge amounts of criticism from the Israeli opposition that Netanyahu is listening too much to Donald Trump and not launching the scale of assault on Lebanon that he has promised and that they want him to launch. So even the incredibly modest level of concession Netanyahu appears to be making to Trump has become a political liability for him in Israel. So there is some tension here between kind of maintaining the line of communication and the possible, influence over Israeli decisions, but then you're complicit in them, arguably. How do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I would say 3 things. One is, first of all, even if you don't change their behavior at all, you are at least no longer providing arms for a genocide. I count that as a win in and of itself. Second of all, this idea that, okay, they could just move forward without us. We have enough, Israeli security officials, not just recently, but going back many years, saying, listen, without U.S. support, we simply could not continue. That is what the Israeli security echelon believes. And third, this idea that they were just staying engaged to have influence, I don't buy that. And the reason I don't is I'm going to go back to, I believe it was 2019. This is when I was working with Senator Sanders on a war powers resolution on Yemen. The United States was involved in support of the Emirati and Saudi war on Yemen, massive humanitarian crisis at that time, the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. And Senator Sanders and along with Senator Chris Murphy, Senator Mike Lee offered a war powers resolution, which basically says the president has taken the United States into a conflict without the appropriate authorization from Congress. And at the time, a number of former Obama administration officials published a letter, which we really appreciated, saying that they had made a mistake because this war started under the Obama administration. And initially, President Obama and his team supported it for exactly the reason you just said in Israel, which was to say, okay, we don't necessarily like this war on Yemen, but staying engaged and staying supportive of what the Saudis and the Emiratis are doing will give us some influence in how this war is conducted. They said in that letter that was a mistake. We were not able to have meaningful influence. And in fact, what we did was just give affirmation to a terrible war. And some of the people who signed that letter went on to serve in the Biden administration and are now out here offering the exact same argument for why it was better to continue supporting Netanyahu and Israel and Gaza, and I don't buy it.
The other argument you'll hear, this sometimes from Democrats, very often from Republicans, is that Israel's an American ally. We stand with our allies. Israel is an important strategic partner in the region in intelligence and cooperation and other things. And so there is an American strategic interest, more of a realist take than a values-based take, in maintaining a tight alliance. Do you buy that?
Are we benefiting from our relationship to the Middle East right now? What's happening? Are we benefiting from this relationship? Yes, I hear this argument a lot. It's kind of almost it's like a holy writ in Washington. But I do question it. Yes, it's good to have allies. It's good to have democratic allies. I think the United States should work with allies to defend their legitimate security interests. I think what Israel has been doing is not remotely legitimate. When I hear people bring up, do we have this cooperation on technology, on tech? And my answer is, well, for what? Obviously, this is very, very good for Israel. This alliance has been very, very good for Israel. But when I look at the costs and benefits, both strategically, ethically, morally, politically, diplomatically, to the U.S.-Israel relationship, I don't think it works out in the U.S.'s favor.
I think Saud is up to a larger.
Yeah, I don't see how supporting Israel gets us closer to any of these other nations in this region. We were talking about Lebanon before. We were bombing Yemen over here. I don't like looking at these nations. Syria, it's like a failed state, basically. Iraq and Iran, you know, like what, how have we, like the Iran, the Gulf of Hormuz, which is right here, by the way, if this is the strait that everyone is talking about, that is the you know, the whole part of this you know, the thing. Like how, like what kind of sway have we had in bringing other countries involved, like into this, you know, Iran conflict, along with the United States? We're alone. It's the exact opposite. We're completely alone. So I feel like the United States is even more isolated. Trump is such a wild card, and Israel is, I don't know. There is so much instability in the region, and it's caused by the United States and Israel right now. So like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing, guys? You know, Afghanistan, Iran, we've gotten into this stuff there. Iraq, like we're Yemen, we're bombing. Saudi Arabia, they're interested in our chips. They're interested in our data centers and stuff like that. Okay, you know, like, but what are we doing? I don't know. The U.S. isolated itself from the rest of the world by maintaining the strongest allegiance with Israel. True. I agree. I don't. We've done nothing but made, like, what the question is like, what soft power or strategic partnerships have we made with other countries in this region? Right? You get, like, diplomacy requires soft power. Like it requires you to build relationships and you know, create lasting things of value. I don't think that we've done anything to do that yet.
Foreign policy debate that is happening right now about what should drive American foreign policy. Mm-hmm. And when I listen to some of the people, some of whom you have advised, who are articulating this on the left, AOC, Bernie Sanders, people like Chris Murphy and Jason Crow, congressmen, something they center is that our foreign policy should be based on values. You hear a lot of talk of interest, but they will talk a lot about values. What values? What does it mean to have a values-based foreign policy?
Well, I would say democracy is one, self-government, a government that delivers, you know, for its people. And that sounds simple. It is. But I would kind of take things back to some very first principles about what foreign policy is for. Any country's foreign policy is meant to advance the safety and the prosperity of that country's people. That's what American foreign policy is for. I think as a progressive, I would add the word, you know, solidarity to that. I mean, I want to be in solidarity, not only with people in my country, but communities outside our country. And I feel even though we don't have the ability to fix the world, I think what we can do at the start is to do less harm.
Come on, how's it going?
There are places where the United States has done and is continuing to do enormous harm. That's not the entire story of our foreign policy by any means. I think the United States has done enormous good over the past decades. I think there's enormous good we can do into the future. I would also say, and this is something you've heard, you know, from people like Congressman Crow, from AOC, obviously from Bernie, from Senator Murphy, the people he mentioned, is, you know, we need a foreign policy that really delivers for America's working families. I think we need to take things down to the wheel, so to speak. And, you know, I'm not in the habit of really complimenting Trump all that much, but I do think he has provided an opportunity, or at least revealed an opportunity, by challenging some of the very basic kind of preconceptions of, you know, post-war, you know, unipolar moment American primacy, that is enabling us to have a debate, and we have to have it.
So I want to explore what that foreign policy would look like, and I think a good place to start.
It's a good question. I mean, and it's true, like in what I was talking about before in terms of with Prime and Corey, like what should the institutions look like, you know, like after the HHS, after RFK leaves, you know, like what are we looking to get out of our foreign policy? Because with so many military bases still, you know, like what is the point? What are we trying to establish? Trade routes, economic trade. The trade people are going around the United States, not with it. Like we're not like Trump actually hasn't done any new trade deals. He's just talking about it. Nothing has been signed. Nothing has been actually done. So like, I mean, what are we doing? I would argue that Trump's probably trying to like secure minerals. He's definitely securing minerals like from Venezuela and from Greenland, right? Talking about invading Canada. But in Cuba, like I feel like it's all about minerals, and it's all about securing like reagents for data centers. That's what it all seems for. Ellie, our foreign policy lately seems like destabilize at will for the U.S. own interest. Yeah, usually resources. Exactly, I agree. What are we getting out of it?
Part is a speech that Congressman Crow, who's from Colorado, former Army officer, gave at the Center for American Progress. I think it was last October. I want to play a clip of it here.
The biggest divide that I see right now and how we view this problem is those who believe that Donald Trump is the cause of it versus those who believe that Donald Trump is a symptom of it. And that requires looking back over the last 30 years and looking at it through the lens of the people that I grew up with in a working class town in the upper Midwest, those who I fought with, and those who I now serve. In those last 30 years, we've had over 20 years of failed military interventions.
Guys, oops, I'm sorry. Guys, what is this clashing patterns that he is wearing? Okay, this is atrocious. Genuinely, what is this guy doing? I can't stop. Like, he's wearing clashing patterns with boxes the exact same size on his shirt and his blazer. Like, what is this guy doing? Don't ever do that. If you're going to clash patterns, at least do something different sizes, different colors. It's literally dark blue and white and light blue and dark blue, like opposites. He's like this is atrocious. So do not do this. This, you know, like just wear. This guy needs to wear a white shirt. Like that's what I do. White dress shirt. Can't go wrong. This guy has no idea what he's doing. He shouldn't dress himself. He needs a wife in his life. Like he needs a woman, and he's obviously. I'm going to say he's divorced, and he's on his own. He's trying to figure things out, and he's just putting things together on his own. Literally just learning how to dress himself. This is not acceptable. You cannot leave the house looking like this.
$3 trillion, 3 million combat tours, over 7,000 of our own dead, tens of thousands of others dead. And what's not in those numbers is the unequal burden that was borne by the working class.
He goes on to say in that speech,
for sure. I mean, like, disproportionately, these wars impact the working class people, because like, I mean, we're talking about like $10 trillion of, you know, money that we have spent on these wars, right? Like throughout our lives, you know, it is I mean, you can't underemphasize the amount of social programs that we could have spent and used for $10 trillion in the United States in that same period of time. You can't underestimate it. Like, we could pay for pretty much anything. But here we are, paying for wars to shore up resources for island boys at Epstein's Island, where Trump can fly to and not be prosecuted and be implicated in the untold acts, the horrific acts that he did there, allegedly. I mean, it's just, there isn't enough frustration in the world for how they continue to get away with it. And like, what are we doing? Like in the fact that Trump was rewarded after this, after what he did to the country, and then how he continues to go back on that promise of no new wars and being a peaceful president, and yet there's still MAGA. The fact that there is a single MAGA voter out there is just unfathomable. It doesn't make any sense. He's gone back on every value that he ever had. And the guy was right in the fact that, like, Trump has exposed a problem that, again, that Obama was talking about. This is back in 2008. So this isn't like some new age thing. Like, well, who was talking about it? No, this is why we voted for Barack Obama in 2007 in the primaries. Like, we all knew this. The Democratic Party was for this. It was the neoconservatives that were pushing this nonsense, and they've dragged us into their version of reality, where now we have endless wars in the Middle East that Obama, by the way, still perpetuated through the authorization to use military force, and he did not do his due diligence in order to stop what we deal with right now. So it is Obama and Trump pushing us into these positions, and that's what I don't understand. I genuinely do not understand how Barack Obama comes into president in 2008 and leaves the foreign policy mess that he left. Not closing Guantanamo Bay, drone strikes, going after and killing a U.S. citizen without due process. Like, it's just like they more and more mounted to be like this disaster, like a true disaster on his watch. I just can't stand it.
That we often mistake the core debate here for being a policy conversation, but what is a conversation about trust, and that the foreign policy establishment has lost trust. It has broken faith. So you're sort of half in and half out of that establishment. I think a good place to start is, how do you see this question of trust? How was it lost, if it was, and what builds it?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, what Congressman Crow said right there about the key divide being between those who see Trump as the problem and Trump as a symptom, I think is right on. I think that explains a lot of the debate right now. I'm very much on the symptom side. And I think, the lack of trust, I mean, it really does come down to this one line from Trump that others have used, and that is, the system is rigged. And Trump gets traction with that because he's right. The system is rigged. Americans can see it. They can feel it in the lack of control that they feel over their own lives, of economic lives, political lives, social lives. They feel, I think, confronted by technology that is designed to entrap them. They feel kind of exploited by different, costs, to extract the maximum amount of wealth of every step they take, every symptom of every disease, every game that their kids play in sports. And I think that attaches to foreign policy, because one of the big, whether it's, the war in Iraq, which was, again, sold to the Americans on what people understand now were misstatements or outright lies. You had the financial crisis in 2008, which, again, not necessarily a foreign policy crisis, but I think its global impact and certainly its domestic impact, all of these things add up to, an elite establishment that either doesn't know what it's doing or is simply looking after its own interests. And I think one of the speeches that I've referenced a lot is the speech that J.D. Vance gave at the Republican National Convention in 2024, where he talked about his own personal story, as Congressman Crow did there. But J.D. Vance, I think, spoke very, very effectively about, someone who grew up in rural America as he did, and what communities, deindustrialized communities, suffered. The lie that was told about, neoliberal trade economics, NAFTA, the war in Iraq that he served in. He laid out a whole story of elite failure, of lies that were told to working people like the ones that he grew up with.
In small towns like mine in Ohio, or next door in Pennsylvania or Michigan, in states all across our country, jobs were sent overseas and our children were sent to war. And somehow, a real estate developer from New York City by the name of Donald J. Trump was right on all of these issues while Biden was wrong. And
I think what Democrats really have to do, and I think what Congressman Crow was starting to talk about in that speech, what I think was a really good speech, is, Democrats need to come up, first of all, with an acknowledgement of the real problem that connects with the one that Americans are feeling, but offer a compelling vision. Okay, this is how we're actually going to govern in a way that can change your life and make it better.
You mentioned J.D. Vance in the 2024 campaign. Mm-hmm. I mean, Vance ran that campaign very much articulating a view that Donald Trump was the anti-war candidate. Mm-hmm. That Donald Trump meant an end to these kinds of foreign entanglements, these dumb wars. Now, obviously, we are enmeshed in Iran. What happened?
Well, it turns out that Donald Trump lies. That is one of the things that happened. But you're right. I mean, both Vance and Trump, in the months and especially the weeks before Election Day 2024, leaned in hard on this anti-war message. Trump was a pro-peace president. We were going to get out of these dumb, endless wars. That's actually something he ran on in 2016 as well. And
never stopped.
I think it is very interesting. If you go back every election since the end of the Cold War, in every election, including starting with 1992, with the one exception of 2004, the more anti-war candidate has won. I'm not going to say that they won because they were anti-war, but I do think that is a very interesting set of data, which I think says at the very least that there is an audience for a much less militaristic vision of America's role in the world. I mean, even Joe Biden in 2020, he ran on a pledge to end the forever wars. He ran on a much less militaristic platform that he ended up teeing up for Kamala Harris in 2024, and Trump took advantage of that. Democrats just abandoned the anti-war lane and left it wide open for Trump. And again, I said then and I say now, obviously, no one should believe Trump, but I do think he had at least the political intelligence to recognize that that was an attractive message, and I think Democrats really need to understand that.
Let me
I mean, I think it's a lot of things though. Like, there's a lot of war that's going on. Do you know what I mean? There's Israel, Palestine, there's Sudan here, South Sudan. This is a civil war that's causing 1 million people to lose their lives in the last 3 years. That's majority women and children. You have Syria and Yemen. Both of these have caused had huge political turmoils. That's another 1 million people between these in the last 3 years. There's and it's so tough because it's there's so much how do we stop these from happening democratically? I think that's the question, small d democratically. How does the United Nations play a bigger role in stifling this stuff? It shouldn't be that Sudan has a civil war that's this long, 3 years with 1 million people dead. You know what I mean? It's just it shouldn't be. Yeah, Ukraine and Russia, exactly. Ukraine, what's over here? I thought I was here. Oh my gosh. Embarrassing. There it is. That's right. Yeah, I mean the annexation of Crimea here. That's happened for so long, and Ukraine's one of those ones where it's literally it's Europe. Like Europe is like why the United States, and they're going to talk about Ukraine here in a little bit, but like this should be Europe that's funding Ukraine. Ukraine is a huge one because after this happened, Russia started all the oil and energy that came from Russia to Europe was dramatically increased in cost. It was causing the German energy costs to skyrocket 30%. So like Europe has an economic advantage. Europe has an economic incentive in order to help Ukraine fight this war against Moscow. But right now we are basically in kind of like a cold civil war, a proxy war with Russia through the Ukraine conflict. So, and the idea that like Russia can just annex portions of sovereign nations and how Russia is able to do that, it blows my mind. Like how is the UN and the EU allowing this to happen? The UN must be empowered to secure sovereignty by acting more rapidly before it becomes down to human security. Yeah, it has to be.
Try to make the case for the other side of this, right? Putting aside the question of who performs electorally, because I think that's kind of tricky, and why they perform. You take Biden as an example. I think Biden thought he had learned some important lessons. And one thing that his people always bragged about was that he was the first president in some time to have not committed American troops to new wars. They ended the Afghanistan war. People hated the way that looked, at the very least. That's when Biden's approval rating fell beneath 50% and never recovered. But then it wasn't Joe Biden who invaded Ukraine. It was Russia. I mean, you named earlier the very first value that a left foreign policy based on democracy, right? You have Russia invading a democracy. Biden, I think, is trying through this period to calibrate a response to that does not enmesh American troops, but nevertheless does not abandon Ukraine to Vladimir Putin. You know, Hamas attacks on October 7th. It's another thing Biden responds to as opposed to something he is creating. How do you think about those from this perspective? Maybe not where the Gaza war eventually went, but these early moments, because a lot of foreign policy is not what the president decides to do. It is something has happened. And now he has to make a decision.
Right. I mean, let's take all of those. First, yes. I mean, personally, I think all things considered, his response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Fuck. Okay. I think we're going to do a part 1, part 2. We have like halfway, we have another hour left. So we'll do this a little later. And, yeah, sorry guys. I've just been sitting for a long time and I'm just going to, yeah, I'm sorry. I am crashing. So thank you all for hanging out. I appreciate you. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Ali. Appreciate you. Yeah, so let's we'll do part 2 tomorrow and finish this. And then yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Get your heart me's, guys. I'm gonna head out and thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, check out my YT. My link is in my profile. Check it out. Subscribe. The highlights, I'm basically going to be putting highlights in. If you haven't watched it, you didn't get to watch it before, that's where it is. I'll probably go live tomorrow at like around 9 p.m. PST. So yeah. Hope you guys have a good night. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being on the panel. I will it's a Dr. Greg show on YouTube. It's in my profile. All right. Love you guys. Bye. Have a good one.